Let's get it. 580 Sports Talk coming at you on a Hump Day Wednesday. So glad you are with us on this Wednesday afternoon. Whether you're tuned in on 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, or whether you're watching us via our video stream on Facebook at WIBW News, on Twitter at 580 Sports Talk, and on our YouTube page, 580 Sports Talk on YouTube. However you're consuming the program today, thank you for being along for 580 Sports Talk. We are with you until 2 to 6, and then we'll have a little overtime before 6:30. We hand it over to the Royals Baseball Network for pregame coverage of Game 2 of the Royals home series against the Tampa Bay Rays. First pitch tonight, 7:10. Hopefully the last pitch will happen while I'm still awake. That was not the case for last night's rain-delayed contest. About 2.5-hour rain delay last night.
Yeah.
So in case you missed it while you were sleeping, the Royals fell to the Rays last night, 5-1. Not a ton to say about it, but
well, look,
we'll say as much as we possibly can about it because, indeed, it is our job. I'm Dan Lucero, Spencer Dupuis alongside Trenton Craxner, across the glass, producer, engineer of today's program. It's your power trio for today, and we're very glad that you are with us. We will talk some Royals baseball today. Did you stay up? Let us know that. First and foremost, if you're listening along today, hit us up on the Top City Metal Supply text line, 785-272-9429. Jump into the live chat in the YouTube stream. Again, the YouTube page, 580 Sports Talk. Subscribe to the YouTube page today. That's always appreciated. Let us know if you stayed up, because your pal Dan didn't have it in him. Extenuating circumstances, of course, being that I have a month-old at home. He's almost a month old. He'll be a month old tomorrow. Asher will be a month old tomorrow. But still, sleep when the baby sleeps. And Ashman was down, and so it was my turn. I needed to be down too, and I gave it the old college try.
I'm assuming you arose at some point in the wee hours of the morning.
I think I woke up. I think I handled the 1:30 feeding. Yeah, handled the 1:30 feeding this morning, and then was up again around 3:45 to help with that one. And then I got to sleep a little bit. So.
I'll tell you what, I was sitting there and I almost fell asleep at 12, like it was 12:05.
But you grinded your way through it.
Yeah, I kind of had to.
You made it to the end.
I had to get some stuff done for the station.
Understood.
That
you were
recaps of the game.
So. Sure. Yeah, you did. Yeah, you had to. Yes, as our Kansas Information Network sports anchor, seeing those games out to the end is kind of non-negotiable for you, isn't it?
And for the WIBW Morning Sports.
Yes.
And it was part of the leadoff this morning on the Morning Ag.
So one of us saw the final few innings. Trenton Craxner across the glass. Was it two of us? Did you stay up for all 9 innings?
Yes, but I did turn the game off after the 8th inning.
And that's fair.
Because Bobby came up. They had 9-1-2 come up, and they got mowed down by Kansas City native Jason Adam. I'm like, yeah, it ain't happening tonight. No miracle comeback tonight, but, that happens sometimes, and you move on. Yeah.
Yeah, it really do be like that. That's a good team, Tampa Bay, getting better, playing better. Sometimes you eat the bear, and so on and so forth. So, Royals fall last night 5-1. We'll talk about that ball game, look around the American League, and ask if maybe, just maybe, the cylinders are starting to fire for the Royals outfield on offense. Some promising numbers from the last month and change worth of games for what has become the everyday Royals starting outfield. We'll discuss that a little bit and some other happenings going on around the American League. It was not a good night for the Royals in the standings last night. Cleveland a winner, Minnesota a winner, Boston a winner. And Tampa Bay, team they're playing, also, obviously, that was a 2-game swing in the standings as Tampa Bay nudges over 500. And the Rays made a trade a starting pitcher today. So we will talk plenty of baseball here on 580 Sports Talk today. Of course, we'll have plenty of football as well. Nate Taylor of The Athletic wrote about 8 Chiefs he expects to see bigger roles on the team in 2024. And one of them is a much maligned wide receiver. And I want to talk about why, A, he is as maligned as he is, and B, what can the Chiefs get out of Mecole Hardman if indeed he is called upon, as Nate Taylor expects to see a bigger role in the 2024 campaign. Also, Pro Football Focus ranked the top offensive lines in the NFL. You might be surprised where the Chiefs rank. Lots of Big 12 football to talk about today, too. Big 12 Media Days are next week, Monday, Tuesday. 580 Sports Talk will not be on the scene for Big 12 Media Days this year. That has been something of a yearly tradition that Brett Yormark blew up when he moved him to Vegas. So a little easier for us to get to Dallas than it is to get to and stay in and operate within Las Vegas. One city a little less expensive than the other. So we are not making the trip this year. You will still hear from Lance Leipold, from Chris Kleiman, Brett Yormark, and we will play as much audio as we can from the 2-day Big 12 Media Day extravaganza next week. But it does get you fired up to start talking some Big 12 football. And so we've got some topics we're going to discuss on the program today, including breakout candidates for both KU and K-State, which players we think have an opportunity to take a giant leap forward in this 2024 season. Also, an interesting thought experiment by Stuart Mandel at The Athletic. Which schools are better off today after this round of realignment than they were in their old conferences? And what is interesting about Mandel's thoughts on this is how well everybody in the Big 12, or almost everybody in the Big 12, comes out. Also, a quote from Arizona State coach Kenny Dillingham: make Kansas State look a little different on defense this coming year. What does Kenny Dillingham know? How does Kenny Dillingham know it? Does he know anything at all? We'll discuss that, and we'll ask our own K-State insider, Tim Fitzgerald, GoPowerCat.com, when he joins us at the bottom of the 4 o'clock hour for the Wildcat Wrap-Up. Fitz will join us for his weekly segment. We'll talk about Lincoln Cure's commitment. We'll talk about Kenny Dillingham's quote in The Athletic and the possibility of a different-looking K-State defense in some ways this coming year, and much, much more. You never know what we're going to talk about when Fitz joins the show.
I can't remember last week if we had a chance to talk to him about the basketball scheduling. Did we get a chance to do that?
No, we probably didn't, because the basketball schedules came out Thursday, Friday. So Thursday or Friday, I don't remember which day. So yeah, we'll talk a little hoops. We'll talk all kinds of good stuff with Tim Fitzgerald. He joins us at the bottom of the 4 o'clock hour today. Plus all the things you've come to expect from a Wednesday edition of 580 Sports Talk. We'll play around a One Gotta Go. We'll have What Is Wrong With You in the typical time slot. Sports headlines kick off the 5 o'clock hour. All that good stuff to come in this 4-hour edition of 580 Sports Talk. Again, you can interact with the program today. You're invited and encouraged to weigh in. The Top City Metal Supply text line is 785-272-9429. That's 785-272-9429. Also, if you're watching, hi to everyone watching, you can interact with the show in the YouTube live chat, or you can send us comments if you're watching on Twitter, 580 Sports Talk, or on Facebook, WIBW News. And we can get to those as well. So we bring you 580 Sports Talk today from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. Like I said, I did not make it to the end. I did not make it to the conclusion of last night's Royals loss. The 2.5-hour rain delay and having a newborn at home conspired to make me miss out on the end of this. I did watch up until the rain delay, and then I left the room and I came back and it was raining buckets. I couldn't believe it. Like, I had no indication it was going to be a rain delay. I left the room for like 2 minutes, and then I come back, and it looked like somebody should maybe try to build an arc in center field as hard as it was raining.
Yeah, I on the other hand, wanted to see if the game started on time, because, we were ending the show, and it was pouring here on Huntoon Hill.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know how fast that storm was going to travel there. If they were, some teams are like, well, it's going to hit here by 7:30, so we're not going to start the game. So I just saw that it had started, and then we're doing some stuff at the apartment, trying to organize, now that my girlfriend lives there, have a lot more things to do there. So I wasn't really paying close attention. I was looking at the score, but I didn't realize at 8:30 that it had gone into a rain delay. And then when it came back, I didn't realize it was 2.5-hour rain delay. And then I was like, I got to stay up till the end. So I shuttered my eyes for an inning or two. And it just kept getting worse. It's like bullpen arm comes in, gives up a run. Bullpen arm comes in.
It was not a good bullpen performance last night. It followed a pretty typical Brady Singer outing. What did we talk about yesterday? The typical Brady Singer outing. 5 innings a bunch of pitches, not that much damage on the scoreboard. And you still left feeling a little bit frustrated by it all. That was a very Brady Singer outing last night. 5 innings, 1 run. The only one run scoring on a wild pitch. And Singer had done the hard part. That was the frustrating thing. He'd gotten the strikeout with runners at second and third and 2 outs of Ben Rortvedt. So it was 2 outs in the inning. And all he's got to do is get the 9-hole hitter out. And he tugs a fastball to the backstop and allows the run to score for Tampa Bay. But that was the only damage done against Singer, not big strikeout numbers, anything like that. It was a fine Brady Singer outing. A lot of his outings are fine in the very same way. Gave his team a chance to win. Pretty limp offensive performance those first 5 innings. They couldn't really hit the ball hard. Nobody was hitting the ball hard against Zach Littell. Not that Littell was in particular overpowering. Royals struck out just 6 times on the night, so it's not as though they were blown away. Plenty of balls put into play. But nothing to show for it in the end, just the 1 run coming on Bobby Witt Jr.'s home run that I believe led off the 6th inning. Hopefully, if you did stay awake for the game, you at least saw that and saw a highlight to enjoy. We also saw the first major league hit in the career of C.J. Alexander, and I hope he got the ball, and I hope he put it somewhere safe. I don't know how many more of them there are going to be. Trenton Kraxner across the glass. You are not sold on C.J. Alexander as a future pillar of the Kansas City Royals lineup.
No, and it's mainly his defense that irks me. Because I was checking some numbers here on Baseball Savant and Fangraphs and all that. He is negative. He's played 25 innings at third base in the 3 games that he's actually played in, not counting the one he pinch ran in last week. He is -1 outs above average and -1 defensive runs saved already. He just doesn't have the range, and when you have a Gold Glove guy in Maikel Garcia, why is he at second base? I still don't understand that move. And then, the big play of the game was Stratton had first and third in the 7th with 2 outs, and a ball gets hit down the line. He just doesn't. That's a ball that Maikel Garcia makes the play, and the ball boy down the line doesn't pick up his stool. The ball hits the stool and it deadens the ball. So Melendez doesn't get the hop and the guy scores from first. That was kind of the turning point in the game. Remember Matt Sauer earlier this year? I think C.J. Alexander is a guy that could get a longer look if the Royals were bad this year. But every game matters, and he's just a net negative defensively. Do you remember Chris Owings when the Royals won 59 games in 2019?
Rocky great Chris Owings?
Who hit 133 across 150 at-bats. He just kind of gives me that vibe, The guy that it's a great story. He just doesn't fit, like Frazier. Yeah,
doesn't look the part, and
maybe a quad A player.
Yes, a classic quad A player. You're not alone in these feelings. Joe in the YouTube live chat is kind of done with whatever that third base experiment is. It has been 3 games, and I am always hesitant to look down on a guy after 3 big league games. But I've seen the swings, and I've seen what it looks like defensively, and it's obviously not comfortable on defense, but it doesn't look real comfortable on offense either. Like if he was out, he came out hitting like gangbusters, 4 hits in 9 at-bats, and he's, hitting the ball in the gaps. He's producing some runs, lengthening the lineup a little bit. Then I think you're willing to live with whatever the defensive lapses might be from him. But I just am not seeing it. And I know that's harsh after literally 3 big league games. But like you said, if this were not a good Royals team, this would be like here's a name for you. Remember Ryan McBroom?
Yes, when he just came in and hit home runs for half the season before they traded him.
Yes, Ryan McBoom, I believe he was called.
That's his actual name.
Yes,
McBroom?
Ryan McBroom. Yes,
what a name.
You were not around for the Ryan McBroom era.
I was not.
You did not live through the Ryan McBroom era. Ryan McBroom got a bunch of at bats towards the end of a month or 2. Well, I don't even remember what year that was. Was that 19? Maybe.
I think he was still on the team in 20. I think for a little bit during that COVID season.
Yeah.
I think then I think they traded him away or DFA'd him eventually. But he was in a battle with Ryan O'Hearn.
Yes.
Because they had 2 Ryans as their first basemen behind Lucas Duda remember that experiment?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
So McBroom was 23 games in 2019, 36 games in the COVID year, where he slugged .506. Hit 6 home runs, all 6 of his big league home runs, as a matter of fact, in that 2020 campaign in the COVID year. We should have known. That was the tip-off. Like, nothing that happened in 2020 was real. It was all fake.
Yeah.
Then 7 games in 2021. After that, he was a Hiroshima Carp, and presently he is a Long Island Duck, hitting a crisp at .221 for the Long Island Ducks of the Atlantic League.
Wow.
But that's a guy, like, you gave him a run of games, 36 games, because who else were you going to give him to in the COVID year? It was not a good Royals team. This is a good Royals team, a contending Royals team, and they're going to be better as soon as Adam Frazier can get back on the big league roster, which could happen as soon as today. And as soon as that happens, Frazier and Hampson go to second, Garcia goes back to third, yanking him around defensively while he was in the middle of a batting slump. I don't think Matt Contreras pushed a lot of wrong buttons as the Royals manager this season. That was absolutely the wrong button.
Oh, yeah. And the thing to me is he never gave a straight answer. Like, I can understand if you're going to have Alexander in the lineup, okay, you can put Garcia at second because Alexander's a corner infielder and outfielder. But why is Nick Lofton at third base? Nick Lofton played pretty solid defense at second base for most of the year. At this point, because Lofton's like 5 for his last 60 or some at the plate, he's been abysmal at the plate. Just have Hampson start at second base every day and put Michael Garcia, who's having a Gold Glove caliber season at third, back at his natural position, because the guys that they have had at third, Lofton did okay, but Frazier had an error in a game he started there that hurt the Royals in a big game in May against the Mariners. And then we've already gone over C.J. Alexander. He's hurt him defensively in every game he's played in. You got to put your best players. I just don't get it. And Q never gave a straight answer. That's what bugs me, is like, he never told anyone in the media, like, yeah, this is why we're doing that. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I never really bought their explanation on that, and I think it has not served Michael Garcia particularly well since they made that move. I mean, he was struggling offensively before that, and he had a good game the other day against Cleveland. He had 2 for 5 with a double, but he has dropped well below his numbers even from last year, which were not particularly great. I'm trying to find, since they moved him to second base, which was June 24th, and he was already in a funk before that. He's 4 for 31 in those games since he was moved to second base. It's just been a very difficult stretch of games for Michael, really going back to almost a full month. You go back to June 7th, he's 12 for his last 93 with 3 extra base hits. And again, the problem for Garcia is not that he's got too much swing and miss. When Garcia is not going good, he's not hitting the ball with authority, and he's just hitting it right at people. His batting average on balls in play since June 7th is 158.
Yeah, he's in 145 since June 1st because we're talking about this in the next segment about the Royals offense, but Jack Johnson does a great job covering the team. Also, someone was like, well, what's Michael Garcia splits? He's hitting 145 since June 1st. Which begs the question, what's 43-year-old Mike Aviles doing? Can he play some third base until Adam Frazier comes back?
I bet Chris Owings would answer the phone.
Chris Owings is in the Dodgers system. He's only 32 years old because I looked him up today before the show. He's in the Dodgers system somewhere in the minor leagues.
Yes, he is playing for the Oklahoma City. I believe they're the Oklahoma City Baseball Club now. They were the Dodgers for a bit. Now they're the Oklahoma City Baseball Club. And OPSing 790 down there in AAA. He has only made sporadic big league appearances since leaving that was always so funny. The Royals bid against themselves to sign Chris Owings in the first place. When they brought him in 2019, there was nobody chomping at the bit to give a guy with a 574 OPS the year before with Arizona any kind of money. And the Royals just gave him $3 million. And it lasted 40 games. He had $133. He stunk. And then he kept getting jobs. He was on the Rockies for 2 years. Yeah. He was even good for 21 of those games. In fact, in 2021, he was awesome. Then he got hurt.
Yeah, that signing was a classic end of the tenure Dayton Moore signing, because some of those guys that they signed were veterans. And, some of those were like, oh, great, we got 37-year-old Carlos Santana, he's always killed the Royals on our teams. Maybe he'll actually help the team. And then Carlos Santana hit like 220 for 2 years. You know, like.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, there aren't a lot of great options right now because it's not like, okay, they get Frazier back, and that's good. Like Frazier's a veteran, versatile. They can play him in the outfield. Obviously, you're going to offer a little bit more positional versatility and a more veteran left-handed bat than what CJ Alexander is going to give you. That's a pretty easy decision. You activate Frazier, you send Alexander down, or you DFA him, whatever you got to do. I don't think they need the 40-man roster spot yet. They don't need it until Chris Bubich is ready to be activated off the 60-man or off the 60-day injured list, and then they'll need a 40-man roster spot, and then maybe CJ Alexander is a what's the word I'm looking for?
Candidate?
It begins with a C, but it's not catastrophe. Casualty.
Casualty.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you guys. He's a casualty at that point, but it's still not like Frazier's not hitting. Garrett Hampson just doesn't give you anything but singles and speed. Nick Lofton, as you mentioned, is in a deep funk. Maikel Garcia is in a deep funk. Maybe it's a question to dive in on a little bit more as we get through the weekend and closer to the All-Star break, closer to the trade deadline. Do you think the Royals maybe ought to be looking at a third base option?
I think that might be why
Yeah.
Garcia is playing at second. Is maybe they're going to go at Luis Renifo, who's hitting like 317 for the Angels at third base, and maybe that's why he's at second, because they're going to trade for a third base. I don't think they move Garcia. I think he's part of the future. He's got plenty of team control left.
And he made such positive strides last offseason.
He did. He had a really good winter ball, got off to a great start this year. The thing with Garcia this year is the bad has been so bad because he's been completely unlucky in those stretches of play where he's been in slumps. His slumps are categorized not by, he's striking out 30% of the time, but his batting average on balls in play is like in the 150s. Like he when he's bad, he's also unlucky. He's unlucky and ungood when he's in a slump. Like that's tough. That makes things, I think, look a little worse than they are. I still have, like you, Trenton, some optimism about where Garcia stands as far as being a piece of the Royals' future. But I think for the short term, they might consider looking at a third base option, because I think long term they want to bring Michael Massey back to second base. But with the back issue he's had,
he might not play defense again at all this year. Like he might be straight up a defender or a DH, not a defender. I don't know if he's going to play the field at all this year.
Christopher points that out. He's worried about. He's on the YouTube comments. Christopher says, this really makes me worried about Michael Massey's future ability to play defense, and he is a very good defender. He is. Like, all around the diamond, when you have Massey, Witt, and Garcia on defense, that is Gold Glove caliber defense from second to third. And that's a big deal for this Royals pitching staff, particularly the Royals bullpen, which doesn't strike out a lot of guys. You need top-tier run prevention behind you, and that's what you get with the Royals infield healthy in its typical alignment. But we have not seen that recently. We don't know when we're going to see that again for Michael Massey, and that would be a real shame if he couldn't get out into the field, because, like, I like his bat. I don't think he's a DH. Like, that's not a guy that you just kind of plug in and say, well, we have to make it bats for Michael Massey. Right now, this team does. Long-term, I would hope that maybe you could do a little better than Michael Massey having to eat up DH spots on a team where you already need those DH at bats for Salvador Perez a lot of the time, because you can't keep Freddie Fermin on the bench. So it's definitely a quandary for the Royals moving forward, but they've got to get more production. The middle of the order didn't give them anything last night. Massey was an 0-for, Perez was an 0-for, Pasquantino was an 0-for. Really, nobody covered themselves in glory at the plate, except MJ Melendez. He had a nice day. And we're going to talk about MJ and the rest of this Royals outfield on the other side of this break. But there's some positive signs. Is outfield maybe less of a concern, at least offensively, than we thought it was about a month ago? We'll show you the numbers. They're intriguing. And we'll continue talking some Royals baseball as we get things started on this Wednesday edition of 580 Sports Talk Live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio on 580 WIBW. It's 2:33 on this Wednesday. We're just getting started from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio on 580 Sports Talk. Dan, Spencer, Trenton, the group with you today. No show tomorrow. We're taking the 4th of July off. We're going to grill out and pig out and do all the things to make ourselves proud to be Americans. But we will be back on Friday. We're not taking the 4-day weekend. We are back on Friday for a show. Come on. You thought I was going to be able to resist coming back in and previewing the weekend Dan Lucero Bowl baseball series between the Rockies and the Royals?
I think if we had it off, I think you would have been like, Spencer, do you want to come in? Because I'm going to do the show too.
Now that's not entirely true, but
well, maybe if the Rockies were better.
If it was actually gonna be a good series, like 2017 when they played, it was my first year at the station doing 580 Sports Talk when they played in Kansas City in I think it was August. The Royals were still kind of kicking around the periphery of the wild card race, and Rockies made a wild card spot that year. That was fun. That was kind of cool to preview that series. This will be less fun, at least for me, but we will have a show on Friday. So if any of you out there have to work, grind your way through a Friday after having a Thursday off, or if you're taking the Friday off and you want something to do from 2 to 6 on Friday, we're going to give it to you right here on 580 Sports Talk. Tyler calls it the Canorado series. Yeah, it's the battle for Burlington, Colorado is what that series is. The battle for Goodland. So when I worked in Northwest Kansas, we had stations in Colby and Goodland, and the Colby station carried the Royals, and the Goodland station carried the Rockies. So the AMs. So it's and it is split. You really do. You see as much Royal stuff as Rocky stuff in that part of the state of Kansas, which is kind of interesting. Anyhow, that's for Friday. We're talking Royals. They lost last night 5-1. Game 2 of the series tonight against the Rays at the K. Starting pitching matchup, Michael Wacha for the boys in blue, Ryan Pepio for the I think that's how it's pronounced.
That's how I would pronounce it. That's how I did pronounce it.
It's French. I know that. He's not French. Maybe he's like part French. Let's see what Baseball Reference has to say about his. Yeah, Pepio. That was correct. He's from Indianapolis. That's a long way from Paris. That's the pitching matchup tonight. 6:30 pregame here on the Royals Baseball Network on 580 WIBW. First pitch at 7:10. So Jack Johnson, who covers the Kansas City Royals, not the Jack Johnson that did banana pancakes. This is a different Jack Johnson. He covers the Royals. He tweets at Johnny with one N, J_15. He had these numbers this morning. Since June 1st, this is what the Royals have gotten from what has become their day in, day out outfield. They're not moving guys in and out of the lineup so much. Once Hunter Renfroe got healthy, once Nelson Velasquez was sent down to AAA. This is what the everyday outfielders for the Royals have done. I'll start with Renfroe because it's the smallest sample size. But in 16 games since June 1st, Hunter Renfroe's hitting .313, a .389 on base, a .625 slug, 7 extra base hits. That's an OPS of over 1,000, and he's driven in 8 runs in those 16 games. Kyle Isbell in center field is hitting .293 over his last 21 games. A .323 on base and a .517 slug with 6 extra base hits, including a couple of home runs. That's an .840 OPS on base plus slugging. And then there's MJ Melendez. There's MJ Melendez who went 3 for 3 last night. Looked good at the plate. Hit the ball hard.
Yeah.
MJ Melendez, .236 average in 25 games with a .313 on base and a .431 slug. That's just a .743 OPS, but there are 8 extra base hits there. And he's got a better walk rate than either Isbell or Renfroe, and more RBIs in more games. You might expect that, but 11 runs driven in that stretch.
And I saw last night from David Lesky of Inside the Crown, if you extrapolate that even further lower number of games, 16 games, he is hitting .333, an on base of .412, slugging of .511.
Yeah, it's going back to the Dodger series.
Yeah.
The start of the Dodger series, where before that he had kind of bottomed out, even after hitting a couple of big home runs on that homestand against Seattle in particular. He obviously had the grand slam in the win over the Dodgers. And since then, it's 15 hits and 45 plate appearances, but it's also 14 strikeouts and a 467 batting average on balls in play. The thing that has kept me optimistic about MJ Melendez to date is that this is kind of how his 2023 looked, where he came out of the gate and was really not good in March and April of 2023. 582 OPS. Slightly better in May, not real good in June. In fact, awful in June. June was his worst month of the season last year. OPS just 567. But MJ got warmed up in the second half last year. Some guys just warm up with the weather, and MJ last year was one of those guys. An OPS of 693 in July. That's not gangbusters, but there was some power there. A couple of home runs, 8 doubles, 10 extra base hits of his 21 hits that month. Then in August, an 827 OPS with a 500 slug. 14 of his 28 hits that month went for extra bases. And in September and October, that was his best month of the season, a 902 OPS in 20 games. So essentially, the second half of last season, MJ Melendez carried an 836 on base plus slugging, which was over 200 points higher than his first half total. So maybe MJ Melendez is a second half guy. Maybe, just maybe, that's what we're looking at with MJ. The thing that concerns me, though, is that the strikeouts, while less of a problem than they were last year, still remain a problem. He's striking out 26.5% of the time. He's walking less. He's not hitting the ball as hard, and he's hitting it on the ground way more often. That might be the thing that I'm most concerned about. His ground ball to fly ball ratio, his ground ball percentage, the highest of his career. The whole appeal of a guy like MJ Melendez as a prospect was that he had the big time pop, and that he had it as a catcher too, which made it all the more enticing. But now he's not a catcher anymore. He's a left fielder, and he's an improving left fielder. Like, his glove is not the reason you would pull MJ Melendez from the lineup. He is getting better visibly. If you can't see that, we're watching different games. But is this July or June and July? It's obviously one game in July. He's 3 for 3. He's batting 1,000 in July. That's a good trend. Yeah. Is this real, or is this a batting average on balls in play influence blip? And should the Royals be looking elsewhere for offense? Because as far as the other two guys go, like Renfroe, now his season numbers look about in line with what the Royals should have expected to get when they signed him, because they're right around what he did last season. A little below league average, but you've got some power and some ability to drive in runs. Not every hitter is going to be above average in your lineup. Renfroe has been, I think, now on the balance of the season, he's kind of caught up to where his season numbers look like what you'd expect from him. Kyle Isbell, I continue to contend that anything you get from him offensively that's a real positive is a nice bonus and not a requirement, because he's an excellent defensive center fielder. And if he's going to give you a little bit of thump here and there or some stolen bases, that's great. You take that. He's the 9-hole hitter for a reason. I still think that Kyle Isbell is a valuable player. He's been worth over a win above replacement, according to Baseball Reference. He's on pace to be about a 2-win center fielder. You take that. Melendez is the question. Is time running out on him? Is that a spot that the Royals should go look and upgrade on? I want to throw it to Trenton first for the answer to that. Trenton, do you think they should look to replace Melendez, or are you buying that the bat is starting to come around a bit?
I think they can keep him for now. And if you ask me,
I'm not saying run him out of town. Let me be clear on that. I'm not saying run him out. I'm not saying trade him, demote him, any of that. I'm just saying, do you think that he is the starting left fielder for the Royals? Let's say this. Is he the starting left fielder for the Royals on August 1st after the trade deadline?
I would say yes, because 3 weeks ago, he was still an automatic out in the lineup. He's taking those strides, but his defense was so good. His defense has been good pretty much all year. He's taking leaps and bounds. I think, yes, you keep MJ Melendez in left field. He'll be starting on August 1st in left field.
All right. Spencer, what say you? Do you think that MJ Melendez will be the starting left fielder for the Royals after the trade deadline, after the dust settles on the deadline?
I think that plus defense that we're talking about here, along with his uptick in batting, could be a reason he's traded. and he's not the starting left fielder.
That he could be. We've talked about the post-hype prospect that the Royals might be willing to part with in a trade, and we brought up guys like Nick Pratto and Drew Waters being pieces that are more realistic, A, for the Royals to trade because they don't have a deep farm system, but B, could help make a prospect package more appealing as a sweetener to go get a real impact player for down the stretch. You think Melendez could be one of those guys?
I think potentially, I mean, some team might see his upside, but for the sake of argument, I do think he's traded.
So he's become a league average fielder this year. Fielding run values right at league average. He's still a good base runner. The problems, again, come with his inability to make consistent contact. He strikes out a lot. He's swinging and missing less than he was last year. But he's chasing more pitches. He's still striking out a ton. He's walking way less. He was above average when it came to walk percentage. In fact, substantially above average his first 2 seasons. Now he's below average when it comes to how often he's getting on base via the free pass. I think some of it is the desperation of a struggling hitter, but the advanced numbers from Baseball Savant still kind of have him as league average in terms of his expected weighted on base average, which don't make me explain that one to you. Just know that average is fine. Like average is average. And that's that's a metric that goes beyond your batting average and your OPS. I'm still optimistic. I'm still an MJ Melendez believer, but I need to see it happen for a longer stretch. And I think what I would hold on to as far as optimism that it can continue in the direction that it's gone for the last month and change is the fact that this is what we got from Melendez last year, where he was dramatically improved in the second half of the season. If that happens again, if the Royals get second half MJ Melendez from 2023 in 2024, they don't need to change a thing, because that's a valuable player, especially with the dramatically improved defense. We'll take a break. We're going to come back, go around the American League a bit. Not a great night for the Royals in the standings, and a lot happening with respect to some fellow American League playoff contenders and a former Royals enemy without a job. We'll tell you who that is next here on 580 Sports Talk. Not a great night in the AL playoff hunt for the Royals. They lost last night to the Rays. I mean, the Rays gain a game on the Royals in the chase for the wild card. Minnesota was a winner last night. They beat the Tigers 5-3. The Guardians had their hands full with the White Sox, but walked them off in the ninth, 7-6, the final for that one. And Boston, who has the privilege of playing the wretched Miami Marlins, they tuned up. Remember Valente Belloso, the rookie that the Marlins called up and handcuffed the Royals for 5 shutout innings in his debut? Red Sox beat him up pretty good, put 5 runs on him in 5 innings in what ended up being an 8-3 win last night. So your updated wild card standings, Kansas City half a game up on Boston, 3 up on Houston and Tampa Bay. Houston was a loser last night to the Blue Jays 7-6. And the Royals remain in third place in Central, 8 games back at Cleveland, 2 games back in Minnesota for second place. That's the good news for Minnesota. Bad news is Royce Lewis is hurt again. And that is a pretty severe bummer for the Twins and for Lewis and for anybody who likes baseball, because Royce Lewis is incredible. He just can't stay on the field. He left last night's game with tightness in his left groin. The Twins have announced his status day to day, but Royce Lewis was asked about it after the game, and his exact quote was not terribly encouraging. Quote, "Probably not very optimistic, to be honest with you. I'm praying, but it's usually always horrible news. So we'll see." That is a young man who has been betrayed by his body, and it is starting to wear on him, which is really too bad. He had two torn ACLs already as a professional. He's only gotten to play 94 major league games in 3 years. In those games, he's got 27 home runs and a 945 OPS. A healthy Royce Lewis is an all-star, one of the best players in baseball, and a huge boost. He has been a major part of Minnesota getting rolling here after they kind of stumbled out of the gate, and has certainly helped them catch and surpass Kansas City in the American League Central standings. And if he's out for any extended period of time, that is a big blow to their lineup.
Yeah, and scouring the internet, the Twins are going to promote or plan to promote shortstop 23-year-old Brooks Lee. So he's not on the 40-man, but I think that kind of tells you the Royce Lewis story, is that they're promoting an infielder.
Now, Brooks Lee is a very highly regarded prospect, number 18 on the MLB pipeline, top 100 going into this season. So there's a well-regarded prospect, and hitting 350 in the minor leagues, including 329 with a 1.029 OPS at AAA St. Paul. So he's as ready as anybody to fill a void for that Minnesota lineup, but he's never done it at the big league level, and Royce Lewis doesn't get a chance to do it much at the big league level, and that is a pretty big bummer for them. Other teams in the mix include Tampa Bay, of course. Royals play them again tonight, second of 3 games at Kauffman Stadium. And today, Tampa Bay traded a starting pitcher. They dealt Aaron Savali, former Cleveland Guardian, so if that name sounds familiar to you, that's probably why. They traded him to Milwaukee. Milwaukee in desperate need of a starting pitcher, and the Rays are about to have a glut of them. They've got a bunch of guys starting to get healthy and about ready to come back to the major league. Shane Baz is next up to be promoted. He's been dominating AAA. Again, a very highly regarded prospect in his time, but hasn't pitched in the major leagues since 2022, again, because of injuries. Hard-throwing right-hander, and upside much greater than that of Savali. So the Rays move a starting pitcher, get a prospect in the deal, and it's not a sell move. Like, if you looked at that and you said, oh, my goodness, the Rays are trading a member of their rotation, are they already tapping out, or are they deciding that they need to sell some guys? No, they just got too many starting pitchers for their own good. And they're moving one out and getting a prospect in return so they can clear the space for a once highly touted right-hander in Shane Baz. One other baseball note, this actually happened yesterday, but it bears mentioning. Royals fans loved Tim Anderson when he played for the Chicago White Sox. One of the more beloved opposing players probably in the history of the Royals franchise. I'm being sarcastic, of course. Nobody liked it, Tim Anderson. He was a really good player once. And then his
very recently too.
Yeah, like 2022. He was a very good player. His off the field life kind of blew up in the offseason of 2022 into 2023. And then he hurt his knee and has not been the same player since. And that is the understatement of the century. Was released by the White Sox, signed with the Marlins, hit just 214 in 234 at-bats in 65 games this season. And now his time in Miami is over with. He was designated for assignment yesterday. Just 31 years old, won the batting title in 2019, was a really, again, Royals fans are not going to agree with me here, but was a really fun player to watch and had as good a chance as anybody to be like a face of the league moving forward into the 2020s. High energy player, exciting, speedy, hit for some power, played good defense, played in a major market, and that's all gone. And man, when it goes, it can go in a hurry. And again, Royals fans are not exactly sad to hear this, that things have gone south for Tim Anderson, but he is no longer a member of the Miami Marlins, and his Major League Baseball future extremely unclear. That's going to do it for the first hour of 580 Sports Talk. We got a lot of football to talk about in the 3 o'clock hour. 8 Chiefs to see bigger roles in 2024, according to friend of the program, The Athletic's Nate Taylor. One of them is a wide receiver who maybe doesn't get the credit he deserves or needs to get from Chiefs fans. Plus, some notes from around the Big 12, and we're going to play some One Gotta Go. From the Kansas Drive to Zero studio, this is 580 Sports Talk. Let's get it. 580 Sports Talk coming at you on a Wednesday. This is hour number 2 of the program. Great to have you along. Whether you're listening on 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, or if you're checking out our live video stream on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter, appreciate you being along. Subscribe to the YouTube, won't you? 580 Sports Talk is the YouTube page. If you have yet to subscribe, you should do so. Subscribing gives you all kinds of neat perks. Like you can see our videos at the top of your YouTube homepage. That's really the only perk. We don't have like a pledge drive yet. We aren't sending you a tote bag or a mug. This is not a PBS viewers like you kind of situation yet, but subscribing doesn't cost you a thing other than a click, and it makes us very, very happy. So subscribe to the YouTube today, 580 Sports Talk.
You can also get notifications when we go live.
That's true.
4 days after Royals games or post-game wraps that we do.
That's right. Yeah, if we go live for instant reactions, we go live after a Royals game, a day game, you'll know exactly when that's happening if you subscribe to us, because you can get it to send notifications to your phone or your other mobile device. So I guess that is a perk too. Again, maybe that's not as good as a tote bag or a hat, but we should get some 580 Sports Talk hats. We all wear hats.
I mean,
every day.
I'd be good for any kind of 580 Sports Talk merch because
you don't have any.
I don't have any 580 merch.
Let's see about some hats.
I mean, we all wear hats. So
we do. We all wear hats.
I think it would be worth it.
We would model the hats 100%.
My last place had hats, right, that I worked at. But it just wasn't worth it because it was literally the same logoed shirt that we wore every single day. So you look too much like I don't know. I didn't like it. It didn't make sense.
If there were 580 Sports Talk swag, what would you want? You, the listener. Hit us up in the YouTube live chat or on the Top Stadium Mail Supply text line, 785-272-9429. How can we enhance your 580 Sports Talk viewing or listening experience with merch? There's nothing pending. I'm just curious.
Yeah.
I'm just curious. Would you wear a shirt? Would you wear a hat? Would you wear a shirt with my face on it?
Would you
Probably not. That would be terrifying.
Would you wear a shirt?
I wouldn't wear a shirt with my face on it.
Would you wear a shirt that said, "What is wrong with you?" ?
We could merchandise certain segments. We don't have to merchandise 580 Sports Talk. We could get some "What is wrong with you" shirts. Send them to our monthly winners. Ship them to the police departments and say, "Hey, congratulations. Get this to a person who threw a sandwich at somebody or whatever." Let's workshop some merch while we have a chance.
Hey, it can make some extra money,
Yeah, we could sell it. We could
sell it, and then we could go to use that to go places and cover games.
Big 12 Media Days.
Yeah.
Big 12 Media Days next Monday, Tuesday. We will bring you coverage. We will just not be live in Vegas.
Did Michael Swain say he was going to be there?
I believe Swaino will be there. Yeah.
Well, it'll be Tuesday, so
yeah. They'll be. I'm trying to remember if KU is Monday or Tuesday. Let me look at the schedule.
Yeah.
Big 12 Media Days. You search it, and it's called a TV program. It's referred to as a TV program.
Yeah, because it's on ESPN Plus or whatever, right?
Yeah. So they've got a whole schedule for like episode guide. Episode 1, Steve Sarkisian. That's obviously
Google. I like when Google goes and do that. I found it if you want it.
No, I'm looking at.
I don't have times. I have days. Day 1, day
2. Football.
Kansas is day 2.
Okay, so KU is day 2. So, we'll have to reach out to Swain and make sure he's okay to go. He should be. I think he'll make some time.
I just meant like we weren't going to be there ourselves. We do have somebody reporting boots on the ground there.
Yes, we do. We have some folks. Thank you to the listener from the 620 first time texter, at least for a while on the Top Speed Mail Supply text line, says he'd wear a 580 Sports Talk hat. Greg in the YouTube live chat says, "What is wrong with you? Shirts and fridge magnets." I like that. Fridge magnets.
I just thought of like people that wear shirts and stuff, like of things that are on like not logoed, but like writing on shirts, like that would fit. That would work.
Yeah, absolutely. John says, "Sports Talk Moonshine. Here's some "What is wrong with you" toilet whiskey." Hey, I'll tell you what. We don't have a in-house distiller, or that's not the word I'm looking for.
No, but if we, in fact, could work with one, we'd definitely be down to work with one.
Absolutely. I would put the 580 Sports Talk brand on anything. I am
Me
not
too.
above selling out. One thing
Sell
should be
out.
very clear. I am not above selling out. Hit our line, which is the top city Metals Flight text line, 785-272-9429. Still to come on today's program, breakout candidates for the K-State Wildcats and Kansas Jayhawks this coming Big 12 football season. We've got our picks. We'll pick a What Is Wrong With You winner for today in the 4 o'clock hour. Tim Fitzgerald join us, bottom 3 o'clock hour. But we're going to talk some Chiefs football. Friend of the program, the Athletics' Nate Taylor, put out a piece about the 8 Kansas City Chiefs who should expect to have a bigger role in 2024. And now, some of these are not a surprise. We'll go through some of these that are not a surprise first and foremost here. Like Felix Anudike-Uzomah at defensive end. We have all talked about that as a formality throughout this offseason, that year one was something like a redshirt year. Taylor refers to him as an understudy as a rookie. But writes here, Anudike-Uzomah, in English. Anudike-Uzomah, the Chiefs' first-round draft pick last year, could develop into the team's best rotational pass rusher if he has an excellent sophomore season. Taylor continues, Anudike-Uzomah might get plenty of snaps early this season while Amenahu continues to recover from a torn right ACL he sustained in the AFC Championship game. Anudike-Uzomah showed positive signs in the last game he played. He wasn't a liability against the 49ers running attack in the Super Bowl. In fact, his best play came when he tackled Christian McCaffrey behind the line of scrimmage for a 4-yard loss, a highlight that helped force the Chiefs to kick a field goal. Unlike last year, Anudike-Uzomah was a full participant in the Chiefs' offseason program, which allowed him to continue to polish his pass rushing techniques. It is rare that a team in the NFL can use a first-round pick on a developmental prospect. Very rare that is the case. The Chiefs had that luxury last year to draft a player they liked and believed in, but not one that they were going to have to press into duty or to ask more of than he might have been capable of as a young player learning a new scheme and learning the NFL skill set needed in the scheme. That was a luxury for the Chiefs, not to have to get anything from Felix last year. Well, this year they're going to need something from him. For as long as Charles Amenahu is out, Felix is going to get some of those snaps, if not all of those snaps. And I think a year 2 step forward is going to happen. I fully expect that he will be productive. There were some flashes last year. The numbers aren't gaudy. Obviously, he didn't play enough to put up gaudy numbers, but there were flashes. There was that big play in the Super Bowl. There was that half a sack he got, and I think it was the Jacksonville game early on. There was the level at which he played in the San Diego game. Or San Diego. The Chargers, the last game of the season. They played the Chargers week 18, not San Diego. Struggling this segment, guys. I guess my brain is already off taking tomorrow. Again, I'm still blaming everything on new dad brain until you hear otherwise from me. But I like the potential for Felix to take a big step forward this coming year. And I do think that the Chiefs will ask him to play a bigger role, and I think he's more than capable. Others that Nate Taylor writes about, Leo Chanel at linebacker, obviously going to step in to maybe the Willie Gay role full-time. Had an excellent season last year, played really well down the stretch, was excellent in the Super Bowl.
Excellent, yes.
As good as any defensive player in that game.
I mean, if I'm remembering, I'm having a small brain fart right now. He blocked the field goal, right? He got a hand on it? Am I being dumb?
I don't remember if it was him or not.
Yeah, I think Chanel blocked that extra point.
Extra point, yeah. That's what it was.
Okay.
They kept it at a 3-point game.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Chanel, really good towards the end of last year. Excellent in the Super Bowl. Springboard for a bigger role this year. Shamari Connor's another guy we've talked about a lot this offseason. I am buying Shamari Connor stock. What is interesting to me is how much they are teaching Connor how many positions they're asking him to learn and how well he seems to be grasping all of it. Trent McDuffie told The Athletic back in May, I gave big props to Shamari. They've got him playing nickel, safety, dime, both other safeties. The first comment was about being that third safety. I'm like, yo, you got it. Like, this is crazy. He's one of those dudes who's quiet but works really hard. He asks the right questions, and he's very detailed. As much as any athletic physical trait, Connor fits in with players that the Chiefs have drafted in recent years in terms of his mental acuity and his ability to pick up schemes, pick up positions, pick up responsibilities. He just, again, wasn't necessarily needed in a starting role last year, but when he had to play a lot, like against the Bills in the divisional playoffs, he was arguably, according to Pro Football Focus, the best player on the field defensively for the Chiefs in that game. So I think big things are coming for Shamari Connor. And I don't know exactly what role that's going to be. We have suspected it's going to be as a slot corner primarily, but also in a safety role if Trent McDuffie plays more slot corner. But I think whatever role they put Connor in, he's going to be really good. And I think his long-term outlook is not dissimilar to a L'Jarius Sneed type of impact. I'm not saying type of player. I don't think that necessarily Connor ends up being a starting cornerback, but I think whatever role they put him in, he's going to make an impact.
Yeah. Maybe if I turn my mic on, that would help. I do agree with you there. And I think the Chiefs have just I mean, we talk about all the time, what they're able to do at the defensive back position when it comes to getting players, developing them, getting players late in the draft and developing them. You never know what a Kamal Hayden could turn into as well.
Kamal Hadden,
sorry. There's so many players that can do so many things in this defensive secondary. I mentioned this before. Najee Johnson could play nickel as well if he needed to. He can play some safety as well. Like you get guys that are good at multiple things that can play multiple positions, and they're going to help you out in whatever way they can, whatever way that they're thrust into at a certain point.
Continuing down the list, the next player on the list. So we've got these three defensive players that I think we are all expecting and understanding to see bigger roles and to excel in those bigger roles. The next player on the list is Mecole Hardman. Here's what Nate Taylor writes. Hardman's 6-year career has been anything but linear, but he enters this season as the Chiefs' most experienced receiver, the one who has worked the most alongside quarterback Patrick Mahomes. That should allow him to be a core member of the Chiefs' passing game, even though he re-signed with the team on a 1-year deal. Hardman's speed should also play a role in helping teammates such as Travis Kelce and Marquise Brown, Rashee Rice, and Xavier Worthy get advantageous opportunities to create highlights. Hardman will likely be relied upon early in the season, especially since Rice is expected to serve a multi-game suspension to start in September. Now, that is contrary to some of the reporting we heard. We talked about it on Monday's show, that there are some, Jeremy Fowler of ESPN among them, who think that it's possible that Rashee Rice avoids suspension in 2024, and that may get kicked down the road to 2025. But Taylor writes that the expectation, and Taylor's sources are in the building, so you can assume that in the building, the operating expectation right now is, hey, it'd be nice if we have Rashee Rice for all 17 games, but that's probably not going to happen.
Yeah.
So, Mecole Hardman. I don't think that there's a bigger disparity between how respected a player is in the locker room and how disrespected he is by the fans than there is for Mecole Hardman. Although maybe catching the Super Bowl winning touchdown is enough goodwill to at least start the season on something like a clean slate for Mecole. Obviously, you think back to the fumble he had in the divisional round of the playoffs, and you think this is a guy who, along with all the other receivers they had on last year's team, essentially can't really be trusted. You can't trust him in a big spot. You can't trust his hands. You can't trust his route running. There's a reason the Chiefs were willing to let him go in the first place. There's a reason the Jets were willing to cut bait on him 6 weeks into their season. It's just not clicking for Mecole Hardman. But we're 6 years in. Mahomes likes him. Like there's no like doubting that Mahomes and Hardman have a good, at least interpersonal relationship. If it's definitely an if not now win kind of season for Hardman.
Yeah.
And that can be a motivating factor. You know, it's sort of like the contract year idea where you play extremely well if you're in line for a big contract. And certainly Hardman's on a 1-year deal. So if he does have a productive season, maybe he could sign something that would be more of a longer term deal with either the Chiefs or somebody else. But let me just put it to you, Spencer. Do you think that increased McCole Hardman targets and snaps could be a good thing for the Chiefs? In what way could that be a good thing?
A good thing. It might have to happen. I mean, I don't necessarily know that it could be a good thing. I mean, clearly. All right, never mind. Let me spin it this way.
Okay.
He caught the game-winning catch in the Super Bowl, correct?
He did do that.
Maybe that can re-energize his battery per se, and say, I was the guy that caught the game-winning touchdown in the Super Bowl in overtime. Let me use that to have a great 2024.
Maybe that can be who he is now, right? Instead of the disappointment, instead of the second round pick who didn't produce like a second round pick, instead of the guy the Chiefs were willing to let go after the conclusion of his rookie deal, maybe he can be Super Bowl hero and launch himself from there. Maybe that's a new identity for him. Maybe that does clean the slate for him a little bit going into next season. And maybe now we're so far removed from him having been a second round pick and the expectations that come with that those are no longer a burden for a player like Hardman. This is a lot of intangible stuff, though. The tangible stuff, do you trust the hands? Do you trust him not to fumble? Do you trust him to run good routes? Do you trust him to get open and use his speed? That's where I'm iffy. Because I do think intangibly there are some things that could point to, like you laid out, a chance for a bit of a McCole Hardman rebirth. And by all accounts, great teammate. Somebody to root for sure, but the tangibles just haven't been there on a regular basis for McCole Hardman. And I think if they're leaning on him more so than they're leaning on Xavier Worthy and Marquise Brown, and I don't think that's going to be the case, but if there's like a lot of McCole Hardman stuff in the playbook, I'm skeptical. I'm skeptical about how that would work out. I do think, though, it is noteworthy that McCole Hardman is the name on this and not Kadarius Toney.
Yes.
Because Toney did have a big role in 2023, or at least he was supposed to, and then he gacked that away in one night. He went from he's going to be the number one wide receiver for the Chiefs this year to persona non grata in one night of football. I don't think when we look back on it 10, 20, 50 years from now, we will be able to think of one NFL player outside of like a kicker missing a bunch of field goals. We will not be able to think of an NFL player who had a more cataclysmic single game performance than Kadarius Toney in week 1 against Detroit. That was an all-timer and not in a good way. And so now maybe this McCole Hardman who steps through the door and has the opportunities that maybe Toney would have had he proven himself to be a little bit more reliable. Although saying that McCole Hardman is more reliable than Kadarius Toney is damning with the faintest of praise. The other names on the list, by the way, Isaiah Pacheco, which Taylor admits is kind of a cheat. There's only 2 running backs on the roster with NFL experience right now, which could mean that Pacheco gets a bigger workload this coming year. He only rushed 205 times last year. If it's just him and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Pacheco could go over 250 rushing attempts, I think, pretty easily this coming year. Another shout for Joshua Williams, who we talked about yesterday. He was on Bucky Brooks's all breakout team for 2024 on NFL.com. And Taylor doesn't hand Williams a starting job in this article, says that Williams is expected to compete with Jalen Watson for the starting role. But I didn't realize how similar Williams is built to L'Jarius Sneed. And it makes me wonder if the Chiefs think maybe they could do some things, not all things, but some things with Williams schematically that were similar to some of the things they did with L'Jarius Sneed. Neil Farrell is on this list. You might recall Farrell is the player that the Chiefs acquired right before the start of last season. They traded a future pick to get Farrell, who was I think he was a 5th-round pick of the Raiders and hardly played. And then he hardly played for the Chiefs last year, and they spent a 6th-round pick in this year's draft for him. But Taylor writes, Farrell should get more opportunities this season, which should help limit the workload for veterans such as Turk Wharton, Derek Nottie, and Mike Pennell. So looks like Farrell's going to be DT4. And typically the Chiefs will roll 4 defensive tackles. We saw Matt Dickerson in that role last year.
Yeah.
Probably a little bit more upside for a player like Farrell coming out of LSU. And you always thought that, the Chiefs weren't just going to give away a 6th-round pick for nothing, right? Like if they were going to give away a future 6th-round pick for a guy who wasn't going to play a lot, they obviously really liked the player. And then the last one is Justin Reed. And that's a cheat too, because Reed might be the kickoff guy. And that is by definition a bigger role.
Yeah.
But that was what Nate Taylor had to say about Chiefs anticipating perhaps bigger roles in 2024. One other Chiefs thing I want to get to real quick. Pro Football Focus ranked the offensive lines in the NFL. Our guy Zoltan Bidet of Pro Football Focus put this out the other day. Have you looked at it, Spencer?
I have not.
Where do you think the Chiefs rank among the 32 NFL teams as far as the best offensive lines?
Well, they lost Nick Allegretti, who was a great filling guy.
Right, but not a starter either.
Not a starter. I'll go 11.
You are low on the Chiefs. They are 7th.
Oh.
They are 7th. Detroit, number 1. And I without even looking at like the PFF grades, that feels about right. Lions offensive line is really, really good. Penei Sewell and Taylor Decker on the ends. Frank Ragnow might be the best center in the NFL. I think he is.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That's an outstanding offensive line. The Eagles are number 2, even with the loss of Jason Kelce to retirement. That's been a really, really good offensive line for years now. The Colts 3rd, the Browns 4th, the Jets 5th, which that's interesting to me. Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses coming in as free agents to help the tackle spot is what is pushing the Jets up into the top 5. That's wild to me. I would rank the Chiefs ahead of the Jets without thinking twice. The Falcons are 6th, then the Chiefs. This is what Zoltan says. Joe Thuney might be the best pass-blocking guard in the league, while Creed Humphrey is now often considered the best center in the NFL. I have Ragnow ahead of Creed. You could argue me off of that very easily if you wanted to. I think. I think they're 1 and 1A. They're both really, really close. Right guard Trey Smith could also be the league's most underrated offensive lineman, despite being the 10th highest graded guard in 2023. Those 3 form arguably the NFL's top interior trio. Whereas the interior is stout, there are many questions surrounding the Chiefs' offensive tackles, including whether Jawan Taylor can bounce back after a disappointing 2023 season. I think that's fair evaluation of where the Chiefs stand offensive line wise. Bills, Steelers, and Cowboys round out the top 10. That is way too high for the Cowboys. They lost 2 really, really good long-term starters on that offensive line. That to me is too high for the Cowboys. Chargers are 12th. We'll look at the AFC West teams now. Chargers are 12th. Broncos are 15th. And the Raiders are 19th, which strikes me as being a little high. But this is what's interesting. So the top portion of the league in terms of offensive line, you have Detroit and Philadelphia, both of whom feel like legitimate NFC contenders. But do you feel like either of those teams are going to win a Super Bowl? Like, you put other teams ahead of them in the hierarchy of Super Bowl contenders, right?
Yeah.
The Colts, Browns, Jets, and Falcons rank ahead of the Chiefs. Meanwhile, the Ravens are 25th. The 49ers are 24th. Is having a good offensive line overrated, Spencer?
I mean, if you have a guy or two, right? Like, if your tackles are anchors and they're great, and then you have a good center, but you don't have, overall ranking. I don't know, honestly.
It's just interesting that a lot of the teams we would consider to be Super Bowl contenders, there are as many in the lower portion of this as there are in the upper portion of this.
Yeah, I mean, well, for the Ravens specifically, I mean, they had lost 3 starters from last year's seasons, one of them being Morgan Moses to
Yeah.
the Jets. So
They do. They have some guys to replace for sure.
They're relying on younger, unproven guys this year. That's why they're ranked at 25 in this preseason.
The Bengals also really low. Like the Bengals and Texans, again, AFC teams that we think could contend in the AFC, also low on this ranking, 21st and 22nd, respectively. This morsel may bring a smile to a Chiefs fan's face from the Bengals write-up. The unit needs left tackle Orlando Brown Jr. to get back to his old form. The former Chiefs and Ravens lineman earned a career-low PFF grade in 2023, ranking just 45th among offensive tackles. So the Chiefs ranked 7th in offensive line rankings. The NFL feels about right to me. Easily top 10. I wouldn't argue with bumping them up to the top 5, although I understand if there's some consternation about where they turn at left tackle. I just think they're so good on the interior that from left guard to right guard, I don't know who's better. Like I don't know who's firmly, obviously better than Tooney, presuming his health. Tooney, Humphrey, Smith, left guard to right guard. I don't know who's better than that. You might argue Detroit. They've got Graham Glasgow and Kevin Zeitler at guard.
Yeah.
Those guys are really good. But I think it's the best interior line in all of football. And I think that with interior pressure being what bothers Patrick Mahomes more than the outside pressure, because the pressure from the outside, he just steps up and does Mahomes stuff.
Yeah.
Like, the Chiefs are good where it matters for them. They're good where it's important to be. They're great where it's important to be great for their offensive line. We'll take a break here on 580 Sports Talk. When we come back, we'll play a round of One Gotta Go here on 580 WIBW. One got to go on this Wednesday edition of 580 Sports Talk. All right, guys. First one from me. This is from a strictly fantasy football standpoint, we're not really talking about current value vis-a-vis future value, anything like that. We're just strictly talking about you are playing fantasy college football in the 2024 season. Avery Johnson, Jalen Daniels, Devin Neal, DJ Giddens. One got to go. Who is it?
I'll go Avery Johnson because he hasn't proved himself yet.
No, you need to see more from
I need to see
Avery
more.
Johnson outside of just the one start in the Pop-Tarts Bowl. Pretty awesome start. Got to admit, he was unbelievable.
Yeah, but that was one game.
Right. It's just
Give
one
me
game.
more.
I understand. Like, you've got a full body of work for the running backs and a little fuller body of work for Jalen Daniels. Don't have that kind of body of work for Avery Johnson. Understand the logic behind that, absolutely. Trenton, one got to go. Who is it?
I'm gonna get rid of DJ Giddens.
Okay.
That's only because I think him and Dylan Edwards will probably be like 60-40 on carries this year. I think Dylan Edwards eats up more snaps than Trayshawn Ward did last year for DJ Giddens.
I think you might be right about that. I don't, though, know that it will be in the same capacity. I think we could see Edwards get a lot more like slot snaps. And I think we could see more two-back stuff or both guys on the field at the same time. But I do think that there is a chance that he eats into Giddens' production a little bit more than, and I mean, Ward was pretty productive last year. So I think that possibility does exist. Good reasoning for both of you guys. I'm going to go and say Jalen Daniels is the one who's got to go. And the reason that Jalen Daniels got to go is I know, again, we haven't seen the body of work for Avery Johnson, but we've seen like 1 month of Jalen Daniels. And look, it was awesome. It was really good. September 22, Jalen Daniels was generational, like absolutely off the charts, out of this world. He hasn't been quite that good since. He's been in and out of the lineup. And the other thing, too, again, if this is a fantasy football, so we're talking in terms of like production, Avery Johnson is going to run for KU. They're going to use his legs. I think they are going to be loath to use Daniels' legs this season at KU even more than they were the last 2 years, because at least the last 2 years, if you ran him and you got him knocked out of the game for a play or a week or a few weeks, you had Jason Bean. Jason Bean is not walking through that door anymore. So not having that backup quarterback this year would suggest to me that Daniels' production as a runner will be even less. And I think you'll get more all-around production from Avery Johnson. I'm not cutting either running back because I think both dudes are awesome. So different answer. That might be a first on one got to go. We had a different answer and like sound reasoning, like defensible reasoning for all three of us. So nice work, guys. All right. Spencer, you have a one got to go for us.
Yes. This goes back to our draft last week, Big 12 quarterbacks.
Okay.
One got to go. All right, overall season. So this is going to be based upon themselves, not their team around them.
Okay.
Not what the record's going to look like.
We're just considering the individual talent here. Okay.
Yes, because there's an easy answer to this. That is kind of a cop-out answer if you just said it without giving a good with saying, oh, the team,
okay,
whatever. So the top three quarterbacks in our draft were Noah Fafita from Arizona, Cam Rising from Utah, and Shedeur Sanders from Colorado. One of those got to go based on QB talent alone.
Just talent alone, that's hard.
Yeah, because if I would have just said it as one got to go, it's going to be Shedeur Sanders, most likely.
See, I don't know. Like all three of those guys, really talented in different ways. I'll say Rising because like he's 26 and he's on he's got no knees. Like I'm really worried about Rising's health. It's the one hang up I have about Utah this year is we've talked a lot at length here and naturally because they're the local teams. We talked about the hesitation you might have about Jalen Daniels' health or the hesitation you might have about Avery Johnson's relative inexperience. Oh, Cam Rising didn't play any football last year. Like, how do we know he's going to come out and it's going to look like what it looked like before? How do we know that? I don't think that we do. And look, when he has been on the field, he's a very talented player. He's been productive. He's been accurate. He's been a weapon on the ground in a way that Fafita isn't, in a way that Shedeur Sanders isn't. but the injuries are a very real concern for him. And I don't know that he's going to be able to be the dual threat that he was all the way back in 2022. So for me, I will say Rising. I have the most concerns about him. Trenton, what about you? Rising, Fafita, Sanders, one got to go.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with everything you said about Cam Rising. I have nothing to add there. Yeah, you basically said what I would say.
You James Carvilled me in old school. I have nothing to add. That was perfect.
Yeah, basically everything I was going to say. I'm not going to waste anyone's time.
All right, hey, fair enough. Spencer, what about you? What's your answer? It's your one got to go. What's your answer?
I'm gonna go back on what I'm gonna for devil's advocate here.
You're gonna push back? Okay.
Push back Shedeur Sanders.
Okay.
Who is he without his dad as his head coach?
So,
like, who is he as a raw quarterback talent if he wasn't coached by his father?
I think he might be one of those guys who's a little better off. Like, numbers wise, there's definitely like an AAU dad vibe to everything that Deion Sanders is doing as the coach at Colorado, just trying to pump Shedeur's numbers up, make Shedeur look good. But like, there's no nepotism in the world that can make up for the fact that the arm talent is very real. He throws a beautiful deep ball. He can create on the move. He can be accurate on the move. Definitely some faults as a player. Don't get me wrong. And I'm not saying that your choice here is indefensible, but the reason that I would keep Sanders is I think that as a passer, as a creator in the passing game, he's really, really good. And I think he has a chance to take a step forward next year because, like, the offensive line can't be as bad for Colorado as it was last year. Don't get me wrong. That doesn't mean I think it's going to be good. I just don't think it can be as bad as it was last year. Like, last year, they were pulling in guys from G5 programs. This year, at least, all their transfer portal, all their Louis luggage came from the Power Four.
Yeah.
You know, and they got the true freshman 5-star that might start at left tackle from day one. So it can't be worse. And I think that'll probably help him along as well. Nobody said Noah Fafita, making me feel a lot better about me taking him number 1 overall in the Big 12 quarterback draft. By chance, Trenton, did you bring one to us today?
Yeah, I'll make this real quick about the Royals.
Okay.
Chris Bubic's going to be back soon.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to have 4 lefties in the bullpen, but I'll give you another option. So who has to go from the Royals roster, whether they get DFA'd or sent down to the minors? Sam Long.
Okay.
Will Smith, Angel Zerpa, or Nick Anderson, who does have an option left if you want to send him down.
Well,
Boy, Anderson's been pretty good lately. I know he gave up the dinger last night, but he's doing something different. I think he's starting to turn his season around. He's starting to look a little bit more like the guy he was with Tampa Bay in 2000. Will Smith has also pitched better, but like I don't want to. I know he's a veteran, and I know he's got 9th inning experience. I can't carry a reliever striking out less than 6 batters per 9 innings. I can't do it. I would say Will Smith. That's a very hard decision. I'm sure that you make a different one. Like, if we're just going by the numbers here, maybe Smith is like really the elder statesman of that bullpen, and you think, hey, we can send Zerpa down, or we can option Anderson, and that might be the way they go. But if you're asking me which of those 4 this bullpen can do without, just in terms of raw production, it's Will Smith.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
All right, we'll take a break after a rousing round of One Gotta Go. When we come back, some notes from around Big 12 football on 580 Sports Talk. 347 on 580 Sports Talk. Dan Spencer Trenton with you on this Wednesday. No show tomorrow. We're taking the 4th of July off. We'll be back with you on Friday for a full show. We're going to talk some more Big 12 football in the 4 o'clock hour. Breakout candidates for K-State and KU in the Big 12 season 2024. We'll also hear from Tim Fitzgerald to GoPowerCat.com. Lots happening in Wildcat land to discuss with Fitz. He'll join us at the bottom of the hour for Wildcat Wrap-Up. Couple of things, though, that I thought were interesting to discuss. I saw on The Athletic when I was reading earlier today. Stuart Mandel, national college football writer, put out an article where he asks which college football teams are most helped and hurt by conference realignment. And he gave every program a score between +5 and -5. And he writes, the score is solely about a team's ability to win. Score from 1 to 5 ranges from mildly better to far better, and -1 to -5 ranks from mildly worse to uh-oh. So, like, SMU gets a 5 because they can be a decent team in the SEC, in the ACC, but also they're out of the AAC and into a Power 4 league. So they get a 5. Cal, on the other hand, gets a -5 because they are going to struggle mightily in the ACC, and now it's going to cost them a lot of money athletically. Anyway, so he does this for all of the power conferences. And the Big 12 is notable because he gives more teams a positive score in the Big 12 than he does in any of the other leagues. The only schools that he believes have taken a slight step back by joining the Big 12: Utah, West Virginia, Arizona, and Arizona State. For Utah, they got a -1, so it's not that bad for Utah. But Mandel writes, Utah enters its new league as strong as any of its programs, but man, did the Utes have a good thing going in the Pac-12. Not only did they reach 4 league title games in 5 years, they could lord the Power 5 membership over rival BYU no more. West Virginia also gets a -1, citing the loss of their identity since leaving the old Big East for the Big 12, and the further dilution of the Conference West won't help. Arizona gets a -2 because it's maybe harder for them to contend with the Texas schools and the other established football powers in the league. Arizona State gets a -3, and they, didn't really want to be in the Big 12. Their university president didn't anyway. So they suffer the most by joining the Big 12 conference. Kansas and Iowa State both get a 0. So it's a neutral state. They don't get better off. They don't get worse off. It's just neutral. What Mandel writes about Kansas is that Kansas has finished ranked roughly once per decade. An expanded playoff gives the Jayhawks slightly more hope for glory, but 2007 type seasons may remain incredibly rare. K-State gets a +2. K-State could thrive in the new world, writes Mandel. It would have made the 12-team CFP 4 times since 2011. It has sneaky good NIL support. The biggest challenge will be revenue sharing. Only 3 public Power 5 schools made less revenue in 2022 than K-State. The biggest benefit goes to BYU, +5. They're in a power conference for the first time ever. Cincinnati and Houston and UCF, same difference. They are +4. BYU, though, maybe with more of a chance to be successful because they've had a little bit more history of success than either Cincinnati, Houston, or UCF. So those were Stuart Mandel's thoughts. I just thought that was interesting. Thought I'd share. But there's this, too, that I read in The Athletic today. There's an article all about the new Big 12. The headline, Welcome to the new Big 12, featuring Dion, parody, shifts in playing styles. Justin Williams wrote it. It's well-sourced, a lot of thoughts from coaches. Scott Satterfield's quoted in this, Kalani Sitake, Gus Malzahn, Kenny Dillingham, Kyle Whittingham. Really well-sourced, a lot of interesting thoughts about the conference. And one of the themes is that the Big 12 stands to play a more smash mouth style of football moving forward, that teams are a bit more committed to the running game. And Kenny Dillingham, the second-year head coach at Arizona State, has noticed that. And he is quoted in the article as saying this: the commitment to run the ball is high in this league, said Dillingham. The Big 12 play style right now, 12 and 21 personnel, 1 back, 2 tight ends, 2 backs, 1 tight end. Run the ball, play action. It's definitely interesting because 7 years ago, it was the opposite. Dillingham continues. The 3 high safety defenses combated the air raid, and now the league has responded to that offensively. So it'll be interesting how much that stuff continues. You already hear Kansas State is supposedly moving away from 3 high safeties and the odd fronts and will go back to 4 down defensive linemen. That is interesting because I hadn't heard that anywhere else. I saw Dillingham say that, and then I read in the Phil Steele magazine, jam-packed with information, that he writes that K-State may even play more 4-man fronts this year, which is interesting, Spencer, because a lot of what we talked about like in spring practice was, boy, is K-State deep enough at defensive tackle? Do they have enough guys at defensive tackle? You need 2 who are starting caliber if you want to play 4 down linemen. Now, you can do some things with a Sam backer, line them up with their hand in the dirt, some over or under fronts to make a 3rd or a 4th lineman. But then you're kicking an end inside, and Cody Stufflebean's only 260. The Brennan Mott's only like 230, 240. That's not really big enough to be an interior pass rusher in the league. So I'll be fascinated to talk to Fitz about this, Spencer, because if K-State's going to do some different things on defense, again, the last time we saw them in a Big 12 game, that 3 safety look and 3 down lineman was getting shredded to pieces by Iowa State. So maybe it is time for a change.
Yeah, sorry. I just was on Twitter and I just saw a picture that has nothing to do with the Big 12. A picture of the American League All-Star jersey, and I wanted to puke.
Okay.
It doesn't look great. I'll show you later.
All right. Maybe we'll get that in headlines.
But I don't even know where we were. I just saw it and lost my train of thought.
Changing defenses to Kansas State.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that would be an interesting look if they're able to do that. I'd be interested to see what their defensive line situation is. Maybe we can, as you said, talk to Fitz about it, see what has changed, because we talked to him about it before and they were really looking for some guys.
Yeah, they were really, turning over every nook and cranny they could to try and find more defensive tackles. And now I guess we can see why, because they're not all Uso Seumalo size. Like you need so a little bit of quickness and some lighter of feet defensive tackles. Maybe that means more snaps for Damian Alalio from Manhattan this year, perhaps. But interesting that Kenny Dillingham would say that. And we will get Tim Fitzgerald's thoughts on that and all things K-State at the bottom of next hour in the Wildcat Wrap-Up. We'll also play a round of What Is Wrong With You, and we will name, to start the next hour, our breakout candidates for the Wildcats and the Jayhawks for the upcoming Big 12 football season. That's all coming up in the 4 o'clock hour after the national and local news. So hang with us. Dan, Spencer, Trent, live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studios. This is 580 Sports Talk. Let's get it. 580 Sports Talk, hour number 3 on this Wednesday afternoon. Dan Lucero, Spencer Dupuis, and producer-engineer Trenton Craxner with you this afternoon. Here with you until 6 o'clock, and we'll have a little bit of overtime today as well as we take you into coverage from the Royals Baseball Network. Pregame at 6:30, first pitch at 7:10 as the Royals and Rays play game 2 of their 3-game series. See, I knew there was a 3 in there somewhere that I wanted to get to. Game 2 of their 3-game set tonight after the Royals dropped the opener 5-1 after a 2.5-hour rain delay last night. Again, pregame 6:30, first pitch 7:10 right here on your home for the Royals since 1969. 580 WIBW. Appreciate you being with us on 580 AM, 104.9 FM, 580WIBW.com. You can listen to the live audio stream. You can also find our YouTube stream right on the front of the page, right up top. You got a 580 WIBW right now. And I'm going to double check this so I don't make a liar out of myself.
It is.
Yeah, you go to the front page. It's right there. It's right there, our video stream. You just click that big YouTube button, that big play button right in the middle of the screen, and you can watch our live stream on our YouTube. And then you can subscribe to our YouTube page, 580 Sports Talk, and that would make us all very, very happy. You can also watch us on Facebook, WIBW News on Facebook, or on Twitter, 580 Sports Talk on Twitter. Still to come this hour, What Is Wrong With You? Round of Wednesday stories, 2 news stories to try and take down our first daily champion of the month of July, a story that I've dubbed, I shot a drone from Walmart just to watch it die. I'm pretty proud of that title, to be honest with you. It's a little unwieldy, but like it's a reference that people understand, I feel like. Like, you got it. You laughed. We'll try and take down that story with 2 new ones on today's show. We'll also talk to the great Tim Fitzgerald at GoPowerCat.com. He's going to join us at the bottom of the 4 o'clock hour to talk about, well, we got a lot to talk about with Fitz. Lincoln Cure's going to K-State. We'll talk about their basketball schedule. We'll talk about their football and whether or not they're going to change defenses. That's something that people are saying outside the program. We'll see what Fitz has been hearing inside the program, perhaps, about whether we might see some different fronts, some different looks from K-State defensively in 2024. That's all coming up at the bottom of the hour. But we are getting excited for Big 12 football. Big 12 Media Days, of course, being next week, Monday, Tuesday in Vegas. We're going to hear from Lance Leipold, and we're going to hear from Chris Kleiman and all of that. So we're starting to get excited. Like I said yesterday, Phil Steele's magazine came out, or I purchased it yesterday at the local Barnes & Noble here in Topeka. I think that's the only place you can get them. So
the internet, probably. Right?
Yes, you can order the digital copy if you would like. I think the digital copy costs the same as the hard copy.
Can you order a hard copy on the internet?
Yes, you can do that too. And they will send a hard copy right to your house. So you too can have the book the experts cannot do without. So many ways to get the Phil Steele college football preview. But I got mine at Barnes & Noble yesterday, is all I'm going to say. Like, if you want to go and like buy it and like take it home with you, that's where you're going to be able to do it. So I thought it might be interesting to see who we think could potentially be breakout performers for both Kansas and Kansas State for this coming season. Guys who maybe didn't get preseason recognition. Again, 2 KU players were first-team preseason All-Big 12, and one of them was not Devin Neal, who was first-team All-Big 12 last year. And no K-State players, despite the Wildcats being picked to finish second in the conference by the media. That same media did not put a Wildcat on the all-conference preseason team, putting them in the same class as Arizona State, who also did not have any preseason all-league teams or all-league players, and is picked to finish last in the league. So, subtracting the players that did receive the first-team all-league honors, and if you missed it, for Kansas, that was Kobe Bryant, Melo Dotson, a pair of cornerbacks. And excluding the players that get kind of talked to death, like Avery Johnson, for example. Like, this is all around. I think this is a group that thinks Avery Johnson can play, that thinks Avery Johnson's going to handle being the starting quarterback at Kansas State just fine and be reasonably productive, if not outstanding, in 2024. Like, that's a fair assessment of where we stand with Avery Johnson, Spencer.
Yes.
And it's fair to say that we think Devin Neal is really good because, again, he was first team all Big 12 at the end of last year and somehow not the beginning of this year. Shout out to everybody who votes in the media poll. Do watch some games. Watch some football is all I'm saying. I know there's probably there's new media this year voting in the poll. You got you got Colorado media, you got Arizona State, and Utah media, and they don't know. They didn't watch the games last year.
I love how when we had Mike Swain on yesterday, he fully admitted he's like, I haven't watched the whole league.
Yeah, his job is to cover Kansas.
Yeah,
his job is to cover the Kansas Jayhawks, and that's fine. He is covering the day-to-day. He is a KU expert, just like Tim Fitzgerald we talk about. It's his job to be a K-State expert. We cover both of those teams, and we cover the league. We want to know what we're talking about when we talk about the league as a whole. And we know Devin Neal's better than Taj Brooks. Devin Neal should have been first team all conference. Preseason. Anyway, that's all water under the bridge. Preseason stuff doesn't really matter in the end. But setting aside those guys, let's see who we think could be preseason breakout candidates. And we'll start with Kansas. And I'll say this, Spencer, I thought you had a really interesting idea. We've talked a lot about the wide receivers.
Yeah.
For KU. We've talked about Lawrence Arnold. We talked about Quentin Skinner, and we talk about Luke Grimm. 3 outstanding receivers for the Jayhawks. But they are developing some interesting depth behind these guys, and that's a name you put down, Doug Emilion, as being a guy who you think that could really take a step forward for KU this year.
Yeah, the former Minnesota transfer, he's a really good blocker. He has played a minimal role as a pass catcher last year. Clearly not the top 3 on the depth chart, but they're going to have a problem at the end of this year, right?
Right.
They need more depth.
Arnold and Skinner and Grimm all graduate. They need a guy like Emilion, who's a junior, to settle and be someone who they can count on for the long haul.
Yeah, they really do. He's there. The staff likes him. If he can be a developmental piece this year, catch the passes, and be a guy that comes out of nowhere, comes out of left field, perhaps.
Because you have to have
those guys.
More than just 3 guys.
Yeah, but you also, in most seasons, there's a guy on every team, and whether it's college or the NFL, that you don't expect to make a big impact that makes some substantial impact. And he could be the guy, Doug Emilion.
Trenton Kraxner, close to the situation in Lawrence. Who do you think the KU breakout performer for 2024 is going to be?
Tight end Trevor Cardell.
Trevor Cardell.
Because not Jared Casey. Mason Fairchild graduated.
Right. Jared Casey's still there, but
Yep.
Mason Fairchild graduated. He was the leader in terms of pass receptions at the tight end spot last year.
Right. And, Cardell dealt with some injuries last year that kept him out half the season. He only had 6 catches for 69 yards and a touchdown for the entirety of the season. Like I said, he dealt with some injuries, though. But he'll be thrust into more of a pass-catching role, especially Deshaun Hanukkah tearing his Achilles, unfortunately, who probably would have came in and filled that Mason Fairchild role. But Jared Casey's probably still going to be utilized mainly as a blocker. So I think Trevor Cardell at the tight end, I think he's going to kind of adapt and evolve into that Mason Fairchild role for this year because he's been in the system long enough.
Yeah.
He knows the ins and outs, and I think he's a guy to watch offensively.
So they do. They throw to their tight ends, and they do a lot of multiple tight end stuff. And obviously that was under Andy Kotelnicki. We'll see how different things look with Jeff Grimes running the show. But I would still expect to see some 2 tight end stuff. And I do think that Casey's role is best kind of in the play action game. I think if you're going to see more of the straightforward tight end involvement in the passing game, that Cardell could be a really big part of that moving forward. You guys both took offensive players here. I'm going to select a defensive player as my breakout guy. Obviously, Kobe Bryant, Melo Dotson, preseason all-conference performers. Kobe Bryant's 2-time first-team All-Big 12. Melo Dotson was second team last year. So obviously something's going well in that cornerback, in that defensive back room. Michael Swain. I forgot Michael's name for a second. Michael Swain on the show yesterday. I was trying to remember who it was that was talking to us about Marvin Grant. Marvin Grant was the name he brought up yesterday as a guy who he thinks could really take a big step forward at safety this year. And I like Marvin Grant too. I mean, really well-regarded recruit out of high school. He's a senior this year. He was the number 5 tackler on last year's team, had the 5th most tackles on the roster. But I'm going with the other safety. I like O.J. Burrows. I like his athleticism. I like the way that he plays. I like the way that he defends. He had 4 passes broken up last year. It's a decent number for a free safety. I think O.J. Burrows takes a step forward and is the safety this year. And that's not a knock on Marvin Grant. That's not to say that Marvin Grant isn't going to have a solid year. But I think this is one of the most underrated secondaries in the country. And maybe not. Maybe now that you've got 2 guys, preseason first team, all Big 12 at corner, and a guy who could take a big leap in Grant, and I believe another one in Burrows. Maybe we won't be talking about this secondary as underrated for very long. But I have been impressed with O.J. Burrows and what I've seen from him really the last couple of years. And I think as a senior, he's got a chance to make a step forward and continue to produce defensively for Kansas. So that's kind of my defensive breakout pick. But I like your guys' picks on offense. I do think that the passing game is going to be valuable for Kansas, even though there will be a temptation, I think, to just give Devin Neal and Daniel Highshaw the ball 40 times a game. Now, I use Jalen Daniels. Like, cut him loose, and especially if he's able to play every game this year, let him make up for lost time and do some things in the passing game with some really, really talented and a deep group, too, of pass catchers. All right, for K-State, since we'll go reverse order here, I'll start with my K-State breakout performer. And this is a name I've brought up quite a bit for Kansas State this year, as a guy that I really like. Jace Brown was somebody who started last season as a name that really only the diehard K-State fans knew much about. He wasn't a super highly regarded recruit on a national scale anyway. He wasn't one of those attention-grabbing commitments that K-State got, and there wasn't a lot of action from him early in the season. But down the stretch, he became one of K-State's more reliable big play receivers. He ended up leading K-State in yards per reception last year, 16.2 yards per catch for Jace Brown on his 27 catches. He also caught 3 touchdowns. And most importantly to me, when you're considering a breakout performer, there already appeared to be a chemistry between Brown and Avery Johnson. And you would imagine that would be true, right? 2 guys coming in as freshmen together might develop that chemistry, because to start the season, they're working together as part of the second team or the scout team. They're not working with the ones the way that Will Howard was working with Phillip Brooks and Keegan Johnson, those guys. So Avery Johnson and Jace Brown had a chance to develop that rapport on the practice field, and I think it carried over beautifully on the field. He was really good in the bowl game. I think that Jace Brown, I'll go ahead and say it, I expect Jace Brown to be the leading receiver for Kansas State this year. I expect him to lead Kansas State at the very least in yards, and I would not be surprised if he leads them in touchdowns as well. I think that kind of production is there for the taking for him as a sophomore. Again, I know Keegan Johnson is hopefully healthy and ready to produce at the level they hoped he might last year when he transferred in from Iowa. And I know that when you have a guy like Jaden Jackson, when you have him back, that he's another guy who showed some big playability last year. But I like Jace Brown the best of this group of K-State wide receivers. So that is my lean. I think he's going to be the breakout performer for K-State in 2024. Trenton, not as close to the situation in Manhattan, but who you got as a K-State breakout player?
Admittedly, Jace Brown was one of my top candidates. And
yeah, I'm not like reinventing the wheel by claiming Jace Brown for my own pick, but I have been on that particular hype train since the end of last season, so I'll stay on it for now.
And I just realized I got Jaden Jackson and Keegan Johnson mixed up in the fact of which one came from the University of Iowa.
Yeah, sorry. The other one from Ole Miss.
Yeah. But I am going to go Jaden Jackson as the breakout candidate.
Okay.
Like you said, he's going to be back. He's going to be a senior, and he has the explosiveness. He didn't have necessarily great numbers last year, similar to Cardell, but I think they're going to be more efficient because you don't have Ben Sinnott anymore, who is probably close to being K-State's leading wide receiver last year. If he wasn't, I'm not for sure on that. So
Sinnott was the leader in yards. Phillip Brooks had 4 more receptions, but Sinnott led the way in yards by almost 100.
Okay, yeah, both of those guys are gone.
Right.
So I think
that's 1,100 receiving yards you got to figure out how to replace.
Right, and
1,200 in fact.
I think similar to Jace Brown, I think Jaden Jackson just steps up because he's so explosive, and he's probably the veteran in that room, experience-wise.
Yeah, they don't have a lot of graybeards, so to speak. You have Jaden Jackson, who's a senior, and Dante Cephas, who's a senior, and that's about it. It's a lot of young guys other than that. So yeah, we'll see if that experience pays off, and Jaden Jackson finally has that opportunity to break out as a Kansas State Wildcat. All right, Spencer, who's your selection for a breakout Wildcat in 2024?
Turn my mic back on here.
That would help. Yes.
I think it'll be linebacker transfer from, I can't remember where he transferred from. He signed at the end of April. New Mexico transfer Alec Marenko.
Yes.
He's going to have to play a big role in his first year transferring to K-State. If I'm not mistaken, the Jake Clifton, former starting linebacker, has stepped away from the team this year.
Yes, he's going on a 2-year Mormon mission. Yes.
So you're going to need a guy to fill in that role. And I think they're thinking Marenko is going to be that guy, and I think he needs to come out strong.
I like Marenko's presence as a veteran with a pretty young and unproven linebacker group around him.
Yes.
Like, Asa Newsome, super young, coming off of injury. Austin Romaine, super young. Marenko being a senior, I think probably does step in. I would expect him to start next to Austin Moore, in fact, at linebacker this year. And that's provided K-State continues to go with the 2 linebacker looks that we've become accustomed to seeing from them. It was not just a good depth addition. It was a really good veteran addition, somebody who's been productive, somebody who has unfortunately dealt with some injuries and didn't miss a lot of games last year. He played in all 12 games for the Lobos in 2023, but he would miss like big chunks of games because of injuries. So he's got to stay on the field. But I think if he does, he is going to make an impact. He is going to be a name that gets called a lot because they needed some experience. They needed some athleticism at that linebacker spot next to the old reliable Austin Moore, who's kind of the rock of that group, and a guy who Phil Steele had on his second team all conference, and a guy I would have put, had there been 4 linebacker spots, I would have put Austin Moore on the first team preseason all Big 12 squad. That's a good pick. I like Marenko a lot. Thinking defense, because I gave a defensive player for KU. I'll give one for K-State too. The production went backwards last year, and I think some of that was just what he was asked to do. But I think Brendan Mott returns to being a productive sacker of the quarterback in 2024. He had 6 sacks as a freshman in 2022, only had 1 sack last year, and that was despite starting every game. I think that Mott will have an opportunity to be the primary pass rusher this year in a way that Khalid Duke was last year, and he racked up 6 sacks despite missing some time due to injury. I think Brendan Mott can get back there, and I think he can even exceed the number that led K-State in sacks last year. I think he can get above 6 and set a new career high mark. I'm a big fan of Brendan Mott, love his motor, and I think he has the ability to finish plays that you have to have if you're going to be a sack threat. And so Mott is my guy on the defensive side for K-State. We'll take a break here on 580 Sports Talk. On the other side, we got a round of What is Wrong with You, and then Tim Fitzgerald will join us in just a little while to talk all things K-State on Wildcat Wrap-Up. This is 580 Sports Talk. A Wednesday edition of What is Wrong with You? 2 new stories competing in our weekly/monthly/yearly competition. Both stories today trying to take down yesterday's winner, our first of the month of July. I shot a drone from Walmart just to watch it die. 72-year-old Dennis Wynn in Lake County, Florida, who shot a Walmart drone out of the air with a 9mm handgun because he thought it was surveilling him and thinks there are many drones out there that are surveilling this 72-year-old man who probably lives peacefully, not bothering anybody otherwise in Lake County. So that is our current weekly winner. It's a strong story. It's a very funny story. But we've got 2 new stories today. And Spencer, I'm going to let you go first.
All right, we're going to go to the great state of Florida.
You don't say.
The Daytona Beach area. You can swim, but you can't hide. A Florida man who swam to a small island and hid out after he allegedly assaulted his girlfriend with a vodka bottle was arrested when police sailed to the isle and found him camping out in the tent, police said. Newly released body cam footage shows the moment on June 23rd when officers in Port Orange ride out to the island along the intercoastal waterway to confront Jarrell Joyner is his name. Earlier, Joyner had called the police and dared them to arrest him, cops said. After searching the islands, which are just inland from the Atlantic Ocean, they found Joyner sleeping inside a green tent and ordered him to keep his hands up as they opened the tent. Quote, "What's the problem?" Joyner, who was shirtless and just wearing boxers, repeated as officers cuffed him and led him back towards the police boat. The victim, who was not named, told the police that Joyner hit her in the eye with a bottle of vodka and strangled her when they were at the beach. Quote, "He said the devil wanted him to kill me," she recalled, end quote.
All right. Let's stop you there. That's kind of a grim start to this story. But he swung out to an island, and he said he planned clearly to be there for a while. Like, this was his exit strategy.
Yeah.
Like, whatever wrong he had done and allegedly did super wrong here, he thought that he had a way to avoid prosecution. He was going to live on his little island.
Yeah.
He was going to live in a tent it's a nice tent too. Like, this not like one of those like toy tents either. Like, he got an air mattress in there, the whole thing.
Air mattress in there.
He really thought this through.
Yeah. Police noted that bystanders rushed to stop Joyner and tried to hold him down before he managed to escape and swim off. They said in a statement, quote, "Jarrell Joyner struck his girlfriend on the head with a handle of vodka, then proceeded to choke her by wrapping his hands around her throat." Police said in a statement, Joyner then subsequently continued to choke his girlfriend by wrapping a rope around her neck. Joyner's girlfriend is believed to have sustained a broken arm as well during the incident, the department added. After fleeing the scene, police said they received a call from him saying he said he, quote, "beat up his old lady, come and get me."
Oh, jeez.
Joyner was charged with aggravated battery with a deadly weapon, domestic battery by strangulation, and felony battery. All around bad dude.
Yeah. Hope he spends more time in the jail than he did in his little tent. That's for sure. All right. For my story today, we are going to El Paso, Texas, and we have a woman who called police and said that her car had been stolen and that her small child was inside. Horrible story. They found the car. They still didn't find the small child because there was one small problem. There was no small child. There was no child. El Paso police scrambled when a woman called 911 on Sunday claiming her small child was inside a vehicle that was reportedly stolen. Police officials said it turned out the child did not exist. 19-year-old Stacy Deshay Marie Smith of East El Paso was arrested on a charge of making a false report or alarm following an investigation by detectives with the Crimes Against Persons Unit. Smith is accused of making up the missing child story in order to elicit a faster response from police in finding her friend's vehicle that allegedly had been taken. A search for the child in the vehicle began about 12:30 p.m. Sunday, June 30th. Police first received a call reporting a vehicle theft. Smith then allegedly called 911 reporting that her child was missing and that she suspected the child had been taken by the person who had taken her friend's vehicle. After officers met with Smith and her friend, the vehicle was located after an extensive search, but the child was still missing. Detectives with the Crimes Against Persons Unit were called in to assist with the missing child investigation. The investigation revealed, according to a statement by police, the child did not exist, and Smith had provided a fictitious name of a child to have police locate her friend's vehicle quickly. Smith was arrested and remained incarcerated on Monday under a $5,000 bond. It was not disclosed if anyone was arrested in connection with the taking of the vehicle. So now, look, I can understand, like, not feeling like the police are putting a high enough priority on your case. Like, you stolen car, you want it back. You feel like the police, you like the Big Lebowski, right? You're asking, hey, you got any leads on my car? Like, leads? You want leads on your missing, beat up car? So I understand that. I understand the compulsion to feel like, man, I really wish the police would try harder to find my stolen vehicle. This would not be the way to go about it. This would not be how you would do it, to call and say, oh, yeah, they also stole my child. What child? My very real child. My very real, what she look like? She looks like a child. What was she wearing? Kids' clothes. Like, I have to imagine the story fell apart almost immediately.
Oh yeah.
And now she's in trouble for somebody stealing a car, and she's the one in jail. We don't know if anybody the person who stole the car is in jail. Yeah, but we know she is.
They still haven't found her car.
No, they found the car.
Oh, they did.
Yeah, they found the car. They didn't find a kid. Because there wasn't one. There wasn't one. All right, who wins today? Trent, I'm going to throw you the first vote. Who wins today?
I'll take your story about the fake missing child.
Okay, fake missing child. Spencer, what do you think?
The guy who evaded arrest by going to an island.
You like the island?
He had an exit strategy.
He did. He's a scumbag, though.
But
like,
yes,
for real.
A grade A scumbag.
Like, beating his girlfriend and said the devil made him do it. Like, there might be a screw or two loose there. We can assume this woman had total clarity of thought when she said, I know how to find the missing car. I know how to get the cops off their lazy rear ends. I'm going to tell them there's a missing child. They always act faster when there's a missing child. Yeah, that's bananas.
Both people seem bad people, but the dude seems like a legit bad guy.
So I get the tie-breaking vote. I'm voting for the fake missing child. Does the fake missing child beat the drone shooter?
No.
No? Okay. No. Two votes for no. I would have voted for the fake missing child, but we will stick with yesterday's champion. 2 votes beats 1. I shot a drone from Walmart just to watch it die. He continues on as our weekly What Is Wrong With You champion in this first week of the month of July. We'll take a break here on 580 Sports Talk. When we come back, Tim Fitzgerald to GoPowerCat.com will join us. It's been a busy week in Wildcat land. We'll talk all about it with Fitz next here on 580 Sports Talk. Momentarily, we expect to be joined by Tim Fitzgerald to GoPowerCat.com. Joins us every Wednesday at this time for the Wildcat Wrap-Up on 580 Sports Talk on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. Fitz, the publisher, GoPowerCat.com. Him and his outstanding staff, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. Just having a little trouble getting connected. We'll keep trying to get with Tim Fitzgerald here this afternoon because we've got a lot going on in Manhattan to discuss. The biggest football commitment in program history, and start there, obviously, Lincoln Cure of Goodland committing to play as part of the class of 2025. He'll be certainly a major addition to this K-State football program, the biggest recruit, again, that they have ever had in program history. Talk to him about that. I do want to talk to him, too, about some of the reporting or some of the quotes, I guess. Phil Steele writes about it, and Kenny Dillingham, the coach at Arizona State, is talking about it in an article of The Athletic, that maybe K-State's going away from sort of the 3-3-5 look that we have seen them use in recent years, going back to more 4-down lineman stuff, maybe especially against teams that they know are going to run the ball against them. And we will talk about all of those things with Tim Fitzgerald. He joins us now on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. Fitz, lots to get to, as we talked about, but I do want to start with Lincoln Cure. It never sounded like there was much doubt among K-State people as that recruitment really got rolling that Lincoln Cure was going to end up in purple. So now that he's put on the Wildcat lid and committed to Chris Kleiman in Kansas State, go ahead and sum it up for me in a historical sense. Just how big a deal is this recruitment? How big a deal is the commitment of Lincoln Cure to Kansas State?
Yeah, he's a legitimate 5-star and one of those kids that didn't earn it early and, just was okay and never had it taken away. He earned every step of it, starting as a 3 and then becoming a 4. And then when he really started to show up at these 7-on-7 events around the nation, playing for I think a California team, ironically, that he just kept torching really good prospects, and it became obvious what a special athlete he is, but how it's grown for use in football at an earlier age than a lot of kids in Kansas. He's really good, and to be able to keep him at home, it's a testament to where the program's at right now, the growth it's experiencing, and kind of the optimism about the future that's shared by everyone. Because things seem to be falling in place. But at the end of the day, he made it pretty clear to us that he was all Oregon until he came on his official visit at K-State. Oregon swayed him, Oregon won him over, and then K-State got him back. So there was some drama. We just didn't know about it. We expected him to stick with K-State, and he wavered.
That's interesting footnote because, that was there were never any signs from K-State people that they felt like it was going to go any other way. But that's just the thing about, 17, 18-year-old kids. They can't have their minds change as this process goes along. And it sounds like Lincoln Cure very nearly did. Now that he is coming to Kansas State, is there a player, he could be a former K-Stater if you want to draw a parallel, or if not, that's fine too. Is there a player that he reminds you of, or a player that you think he has a chance to have a similar impact as?
No, it's a different type of tight end, even from Ben Sennett. I mean, this is an awful comparison for a kid that's still in high school, but he's more out of the Travis Kelce, thought of tight ends. Guys big enough to block, but big enough to get it done at the line of scrimmage with a linebacker or maybe chip on an end, but not glorified tackles. They're more glorified receivers where they can do just as much damage split wide as they can coming out of traditional tight end formations. And he's kind of the new wave of it. He'll need to put on a little bit more weight, but not a lot for what that position kind of entails now. But it's hard to compare him to anyone. And I think if I had to, it'd be with someone that really had almost no impact, but his athleticism was off the chart. And that'd be Daniel Amadabebe that was here. I think that's his name.
Yeah.
For one season. He was a freak. But they're probably Lincoln's more of a freak athlete with great hands.
Tim Fitzgerald, GoPowerCat.com, is our guest on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. This is Jayhawk Weekly, or excuse me, this is Wildcat Wrap-Up on 580 Sports Talk. Fitz, it's new dad brain. Just, you're going to have to forgive me for a while. It's new dad brain.
I got it.
I got it. Wildcat Wrap-Up here at 580 Sports Talk. Fitz is on Twitter at Life of Fitz. He and his outstanding staff at GoPowerCat.com. The preseason all Big 12 polls and media teams came out yesterday. K-State number 2, just one fewer first place vote than Utah got. Utah, K-State, then Oklahoma State, KU, and Arizona. Do you think the media got it right? Is that about what you feel like the top tier of the Big 12 probably looks like on paper going into this year?
That's the easy pick. I would have K-State on top, and I'd like to point out I forgot to fill out my ballot, so it should have been 2020 in votes. But that's bounced out because Brian Hanley from my staff did vote for Utah. We just did a show, our Big 12 Insider show today on this, and where we vary. Brian went through all of his picks, went through his ballot he put into the process, and then we kind of revealed our top 4 together, and they're a little bit different. I think below K-State and Utah, so much just depends on just a number of factors, including quarterback health and things like that. But you can take Oklahoma State, Kansas, Arizona, Iowa State, West Virginia. I mean, there's just a lot of choices. I think Iowa State, I would actually pick them for 4th in this conference. I think this conference has some really good teams led by pretty darn good quarterbacks.
Were you surprised to see no Wildcats on the preseason All Big 12 team? And if you had thought you were going to see a Wildcat, who did you expect maybe to see?
Well, that's a great question. At the end of the day, maybe not. Maybe Jacob Parrish. I think probably the reason why I never filled out my ballot was I found the process of trying to pick, an all-conference team from 16 schools, 8 of which haven't even been in the conference 13 months, and some of them haven't even been in the conference yet. The Pac-12 schools aren't official till next month. I just thought it was too daunting to try to cross-compare and without any head-to-head competition, so I shied away from that. I guess it doesn't really surprise me, but I think this really sums up K-State football pretty well. By the way, you don't have anyone worthy of the first team, but you are picked for 2nd in the conference and really close on first place votes. I mean, it's kind of where Chris Clement's program's at as they transition into what I think will be a new generation of stars. I think we're going to see a bunch of players erupt this year that are clearly some of the better players in the Big 12. There'll be, I would guess, 3 or 4 players from K-State on this list at the end of the year.
Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com joining us for the Wildcat Wrap-Up on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline here on 580 Sports Talk. Fitz, I was reading an article of The Athletic this morning and saw a comment from Arizona State head coach Kenny Dillingham about how he's hearing that Kansas State is going to be a team that goes away from some of the 3 safety defensive looks that we've become accustomed to seeing from K-State this year and expects to see them in more 4-man defensive line fronts this coming season. Now, he's not alone in that sentiment. Phil Steele, in his college football preview, also mentions the possibility, because of depth, that K-State might play more 4-down linemen. Are you hearing something similar from people inside the program? Or is the anticipation that because the Big 12 is going to maybe more of a run-first conference, at least how it's currently constructed with as many great running backs as there are in the league, that we might see K-State eschew a 3rd safety in exchange for a 4th defensive lineman more often at times this year?
It's amazing watching this conference evolve back and forth, because this alignment K-State uses, the 3-3-5, was built to stop these speed offenses, and now all of a sudden offenses are becoming more like, we got great running backs, we're going to run it at you, and that's trouble K-State. They knew this. They knew last year they got too light at defensive end. I mean, they really had only one true, beef eater in the middle of the defense. They feel like their young defensive ends are going to solve some of that. What I've heard is they're going to use a 4th lineman, but it'll be a stand-up rush end type of guy. Yeah, it's interesting. I'll be fascinated to see how much they use it. I don't think it'll be their primary defense. I think they've had too much success with what they're doing, and they're so comfortable in it. I think you'll see some changes though in certain situations. Maybe it's pass rush, or maybe it's beefing up, and you've got a defensive end out there who's 280 along with the stand-up end next to him. So it could get interesting.
Who do you think could potentially excel in that stand-up pass rusher role for K-State this season?
Well, I mean, they've got some young guys that could really be there, but Toby Usana, God, I'm just so bad with names. Anyhow, Toby is just special. They got to find a way to get him on the field, and I think this is one of the things that kind of built a role in there for him, because he tried to play linebacker, but he was a little bit too big, and he tried to play defensive end, but he wasn't quite big enough for what they want. So they're building things around personnel that are very interesting, and it's going to be fun to watch it, because you'll be able to see them run different people on and off to do different things.
We're joined by Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com here on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. And we learned yesterday of an out-of-conference game for Kansas State men's basketball. They'll take on Drake in KC for the Wildcat Classic. Also, believe they're in the final year of their Wichita State contract. Do you know who else, any rumblings about who else is on their non-con schedule this year?
No, honestly, that one snuck up on me the other day. I really haven't. I've been football recruiting for K-State's never really been like this. And this isn't even considered that hectic by college football standards, but it is for K-State. So I've been really wrapped up in that. But I think that Drake game's interesting. I don't know if it's a big ticket seller, but there's also a real sentiment that you got to stop taking all the best games and putting them in Kansas City and Wichita. That the folks at home would like to see some of those games, which they had Villanova in there this year, which was part of that Big East Classic. But no, I haven't. I know they want to be cautious going into this new Big 12 with 20 games in the conference. I think you might see a less eventful non-conference schedule from a lot of programs because they feel like they're going to get all their nutrition there in the conference schedule. And when you're playing 5 teams at home only and 5 teams on the road only, half your games are against teams you only see once. So there'll be some ongoing freshness with this new alignment of teams.
Yeah, and you mentioned that scheduling, the home and away games, they'll have Arizona State, Cincinnati, Iowa State, Kansas, Oklahoma State. Home only in Manhattan, they'll take on Arizona, Colorado, Houston, Texas Tech, West Virginia. And on the road only, they'll go to Baylor, BYU, UCF, TCU, and Utah. How do you think they fared in that, how they came out on the scheduling side there?
I think they've got a lot of big games at home. And I think it's great for the fans. And, if you've got kind of a closer to, 50-50 game like a UCF or something, yeah, go there. Go steal a win on the road if you can, because it's really difficult in this conference. I just think it was interesting how they chose the 5 home and homes. And I understand that they're trying to create some rivalries in new places, or some of the incoming schools need other partners. But I don't quite understand look, K-State got Iowa State, Oklahoma State, and Kansas. Perfect. They didn't get Colorado as a home and home. And I thought that was interesting. Cincinnati, okay. I mean, they were in last year. I think there's some similarities between the histories of the program. And where's Arizona State come from? And also, with that as a back note, Utah doesn't play any of the Pac-12 schools it's joining with in home and homes. There were some things in the scheduling that didn't make sense to me, but I think it's pretty good. I think this next year's schedule is very good for Kansas State.
One more from me here. Last Friday, it was announced that Jeff Mittie gets a new 5-year contract, not an extension, just a redo of his contract. What do you think about that contract that they gave him?
Well, I mean, he's coming off a really good season that didn't quite end the way they wanted it to. He's recruiting at a high level. He's drawing people to the stands. People get caught up in, they need to get someone else. And look, if you're a coach in an Olympic sport, what a non-revenue sport would be considered, they don't bring in enough revenue to be profitable. Your job is not to be awful and not to be okay for years. I mean, if you pop up and have a good season here and there, you're going to perpetuate your job. and you'll get paid less than maybe on the men's side, but it's pretty good work. And I think he's done a really good job at Kansas State. His recruiting continues to increase, and this could be a really fun season with Aoka Lee coming back.
Last thing for Tim Fitzgerald to go powercat.com, joining us for the Wildcat Wrap-Up here on 580 Sports Talk on the Flame Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. We have to ask the important question here. We got about a minute. The Big 12 Media Days are next week, Monday and Tuesday. They are sponsored by Totino's after a 2-year run with Old Trapper Beef Jerky as the presenting sponsor. They're now being sponsored by Totino's. Obviously a downgrade, but Fitz, how many pizza rolls could you eat in one sitting?
Ooh, that's good. Especially in Vegas, where other things are legal. You need those little kind of snack foods. I don't know. I've not really had pizza rolls very much in my life. You know, I'm a fitness freak. Fitting this bigger pizza in my face.
Fitness fit. That's what we've always called you.
Yes. I don't know, but I can't even tell you my level of disappointment because I had this vision, like on Wednesday night or Tuesday night, I'm just walking the strip, going to clubs with my buddy, the Old Trapper guy, and just out there in full outfit. Women are petting his mustache. I'm with the coolest guy in town. Instead, I'm going to be with whatever the Totino's mascot is, which is probably a damn pepperoni.
An anthropomorphic pizza roll. When you see him, whatever it is, send my regards. Tim Fitzgerald at GoPowerCat.com joins us every Wednesday at this time for the Wildcat Wrap-Up. Check him out at GoPowerCat.com. Become a VIP today. Fitz, always a pleasure. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you, boys.
And that will wrap up this 4 o'clock hour, 580 Sports Talk. One more hour to go from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio, and it's coming up after our national and local news. Let's get it. Final hour of the day here on 580 Sports Talk. Dan Lucero and Spencer Dupuis with you in studio. Trenton Craxner across the glass, our producer engineer. One more hour of the show today, plus a little bit of overtime, taking you into Royals baseball. The Royals and Rays, game 2 of their 3-game series at Kauffman Stadium. Michael Wacha for the Royals, Ryan Pepio for the Rays. First pitch at 7:10. We'll hand things off to the Royals Baseball Network at 6:30. We'll have some overtime before that. One more hour of the show today. Thanks for being along for the ride on this Wednesday afternoon, day before the 4th of July, which means I'm guessing for a number of you, today is your Friday. That is not the case for us. We will take tomorrow off. You will not hear 580 Sports Talk if you turn on your radio at 2 o'clock tomorrow. If you go and look for a live stream, there will not be one. We are taking the day off. Spencer, any grand 4th of July plans for you?
Not at the moment.
Not at the moment.
Yeah, we might go to KC. I don't know.
You and your significant other go.
Yes.
You've got infinite possibilities.
Yeah, we haven't really planned it. We've been a little bit busy trying to get the apartment together.
Sure.
Yeah.
Enjoy a day off and maybe enjoy some fireworks somewhere. Trent, what about you? What are you doing for 4th of July?
I think it might just be hanging out with family and friends, keeping it low key.
Yeah, that's what I'll be doing too. My sister-in-law and her husband are gonna host us at their house, and we'll grill, and they've got a decent vantage point for some fireworks, I think. So we'll see how long we can stay. I think that's not up to us. I think that's up.
Yeah.
I think that's up to I
little human.
think that's up to Ash. He turns 1 month old tomorrow, Asher. My son. So that'll be fun. We'll be celebrating that along with America's independence tomorrow. So no show for us tomorrow, but we will be back with 4 hours of sports talk on Friday because we have to preview the Rockies Royals series. There's nothing more important going on in the sports world this coming weekend than the 3-game series at Coors Field between the Royals and the Rockies. So you'll get an in-depth preview, which will just be me telling you in various ways how bad members of the Rockies bullpen are. They blew another 9th-inning lead last night. I don't know if you guys saw. Yeah. I don't know why you would see. I would hope you would go out of your way to avoid seeing, but they did. They tricked off a 9th-inning lead last night and lost the game.
Your team's not the only team to blow a lead, and then
yes, but we're the only team that keeps doing it. Like, it honest to God feels like the Rockies have a losing record when they take a lead into the 9th.
At least your team doesn't get to the 10th inning and give up like 12 runs over 2 days.
We have the worst record in the National League. I do not want to hear it. I do not. I have no patience for it. We have the worst record in the National League. So that's coming up this weekend. We'll have a show Friday here on 580 WIBW. Here in the final hour of today's show, we'll preview the rest of that Royals Rays series. Again, it's a night game tomorrow. They've got the firework and drone show tonight at the K. And then on Thursday night, they'll do the 4th of July fireworks that they traditionally do. So
they do fireworks twice in a week?
Yeah.
Oh.
Do fireworks many times in a week as you want, as long as they're in your budget, right?
I guess.
I mean, you shoot off fireworks when you hit a home run, shoot off fireworks during the Star Spangled Banner. If you got the budget for fireworks, shoot them off. People like them.
So you want to hear a funny thing about shooting off fireworks?
Sure.
So my alma mater, Marshall, their game day experience, they randomly worked out a firework, I guess. They worked out like a partnership, right? To have fireworks. Didn't list that fireworks were happening. So Marshall scores a touchdown in the season opener in the middle of the day, and they just shoot off fireworks.
Sure.
Everyone's really caught off guard. And then it happens after every touchdown, and they won, their mid-major, so they're playing an FCS team. And they won 56 to 12 or something.
So that's a lot of fireworks.
And there's a lot of fireworks shot off in the middle of the day in a Saturday in September.
Yeah, I'm sure the people in the neighborhood weren't entirely thrilled.
Yeah.
Fireworks are fun to look at for a lot of people. For a lot of other people who might be veterans with PTSD or might have other anxiety disorders, or who might be a month old, or who might be a dog or a cat, fireworks are not so awesome. So, I always ask people, we do our 4th of July show, and I always say, be as considerate as you can. I don't want to rain on anybody's good time. I don't want to say fireworks bad, no fireworks. But I always do ask folks, be as considerate as you can to your neighbors, because you don't know, maybe what your neighbors are dealing with. Maybe your neighbor has a month-old son that they are trying to get to sleep. just be considerate out there when you have a good time on the 4th of July. We'll preview the rest of that Royals-Rays series. Waka, Pepio, the matchup tonight, Marsh and Eflin for the Royals and Rays, respectively, tomorrow. We'll take a look at ESPN's list of the best under 25 talent groups in the NFL. So that's players under the age of 25 on each respective NFL team, where the Chiefs rank and why that's actually, they're not in the top 5 or the top 10. They were in the top 10 last year. But where they rank is actually pretty good for where the Chiefs are at. And I'll explain what I mean a little bit later on. But we start the 5 o'clock hour, as we always do, with our 580 Sports Talk headlines. And I'm not going to hold you folks. This is a slow news day. This is a very slow news day. There are going to be more NBA headlines today than we might typically get to on a normal day.
Oh.
So it is a slow news day in the world of sports. We will start with a somewhat local story. Saturday, November 23rd, the National Women's Soccer League Championship match will be held, and it will be held in Kansas City at CPKC Stadium, the brand new stadium for the Kansas City Current. The 11,500 seat stadium has been sold out for each of the Current's home matches this year. It is the first venue built specifically for an NWSL team. If you haven't been paying attention, and it's okay if you haven't, but if you have, you're aware of this. If you haven't, you may not be. The Kansas City Current are awesome. They are unbeaten through their first 15 matches of this NWSL season. Now, we talked a little bit about soccer vis-a-vis the Copa America, United States men's national team losing. I went on a little bit of a rant, a little bit of a screed, but I am a soccer fan. I enjoy watching soccer. I have never in my life been able to get into the MLS. Can't do it. Just doesn't grab me. I grew up in a city where they had a team, the Colorado Rapids. Obviously, Sporting Kansas City has had some success, although they have really dropped off in recent years. Every time I open Twitter during a Sporting Kansas City match, I see very hateful things said about Peter Vermees. Like it feels like it's over for him. And the only person that doesn't want to admit it is Peter Vermees himself, the longtime manager who's had, again, a tremendous amount of success in Kansas City. But MLS has never grabbed me. Like I've been to games. I put it on TV here and there. I don't have a rooting interest. It just doesn't grab me. It never has been able to sink its teeth into me as a sporting concern, as a league. But I try to watch the Current when I know they're on. My wife has some friends who are season ticket holders. They go to all the games. The Current have a great home crowd, great home field advantage. Their stadium sold out for every game so far this season that's been at home, and they rule. They're 15 matches unbeaten. So there's a decent chance they're playing in this championship game on Saturday, November 23rd. Stadiums and cities across the league bid for the right to host the championship match, and it will be Kansas City that gets to host it. Quoting NWSL Commissioner Jessica Berman regarding the new stadium, we've been saying if you build it, they will come internally, and then coming here and actually seeing what it means to actually invest in brick and mortar physical infrastructure, it's a game changer. They have changed the footprint of this city forever, and I think we'll have an even greater impact than anyone can imagine. Playoffs don't start till November, so a lot of season left. But again, the Current are actually 17 games unbeaten. I don't know why the article said 15 and then linked to a story that said 17. But let me pull up the table. It's 15. But I guess it goes back to last year, the final 2 matches of the season. Yeah, 15 matches unbeaten. The Current and the Orlando Pride stand tied atop the league with identical 10-5-0 records. So, like, if you hear that there's a Current match on, like, ION or ESPN, or I think the games are on ESPN Plus. Some of them are on CBS Sports Network.
I was going to say CBS Sports Network,
yeah,
where I've seen some before.
Watch them. They're fun. They're awesome. They're really, really good, and they represent Kansas City really, really well. So congratulations to the Current, the organization, the folks who built that stadium. Yeah, if you build it, they will come. The fans have come, and now the championship game is coming to Kansas City. First headline for you, Spencer.
Yes, the James family owns the Lakers. The LeBron James and his family own the Lakers. Bronny James had this morning signed his 4-year, $7.9 million rookie multi-year guaranteed rookie contract with the Lakers.
That is not, for the record, a common length and size of contract for the number 55 overall pick.
That's exactly why I put it in here. Because and he gets a team option in the 4th season. So that's a wild number for a guy drafted 55th overall. And then this morning, LeBron James signs a deal to stay in LA, 2-year, $104 million contract that includes a player option for 25-26, a no trade clause. His 26th season in the NBA coming up, or 22nd, excuse me. The one thing that I really had a big confusion about was when I got the ESPN notification this morning, it said LeBron will return to LA. Like he was going to leave LA.
Yeah, he was never leaving. It was just going to be how much of a pay cut or how much of a discount does he give the Lakers? And it turns out none at all. That's a max deal for 2 years. And a player of James's stature, $104 million. It puts them over the second apron and really of the luxury tax. I will not bore you with the details of the luxury tax in the NBA, but just know that being over the second apron is super punitive. It makes it really, really hard to make roster moves, to build your roster. It limits how you can trade draft picks. It limits how you can move salary around in trades. It limits who you can sign. It's really, really punitive. And LeBron James took his team $1 million over the second apron. Now, maybe they'll be able to shed some salary elsewhere and some other moves, but LeBron James doesn't care about that. I have to say that this is of a piece of what LeBron James has decided to do for the last decade and a half of his now 22-season NBA career. He's going into year 22, which is incredible. And not a lot of guys played 22 years in the NBA, and even fewer of them that did played at the level that LeBron James did from season 1 to season 21 and counting. But ever since the decision, ever since decamping, leaving Cleveland for Miami in the first place, the thing that LeBron James has wanted to do above all else is have fun playing basketball with his friends. That's what the whole Miami thing was, right?
Yeah.
Him and Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh. Like him and Wade are really close. Him and Bosh are buddies too, but him and Wade are really close. So that was all about, let's team up with my buddies. And, oh, yeah, we're all really, really good in our primes. This is probably going to win us at least. Well, they thought it was going to be not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5. Remember that?
Yeah.
They ended up being 2, which is still pretty good. They got 2 championships out of it. Then he went back home, and there was less of a I'm going to play and do fun stuff with my friends element of that particular journey back to Cleveland, but he felt like he had something unfinished in Cleveland. Then he went and finished it. He won a championship in Cleveland, first major sports championship in the city since 1960. Incredible story, incredible finals, maybe the greatest finals in NBA history. And he went to the Lakers. And now we're in late stage LeBron James. We don't know how much longer he's actually going to play. And we have seen rather definitively that the Lakers are not a championship caliber team anymore. They won in the bubble in 2020. Since then, last 2 years, they've been eliminated by the Nuggets, once in the Western Conference Finals, this past year in the first round. It is no longer a championship caliber team. And with the new salary cap rules, it gets harder and harder to build a team that is a championship caliber team, even when you have 2 players as good as Anthony Davis and LeBron James. And I don't think LeBron cares about that anymore. LeBron has 4 championships as a player. He's got the all-time scoring record. He's got all of these other plaudits. Now I think he just wants to chill and be with his son and be with his friends and enjoy the rest of his time playing professional basketball. I think championships now are officially beside the point. That doesn't mean he's going to mail it in. Doesn't mean he's not going to play hard. Doesn't mean he's not going to put on a show if you watch him on TV or if you buy a ticket to see LeBron play. I'm not worried about that at all. But championships are clearly secondary now because there were places he could have gone and certainly a pay cut he could have taken if it was all about the ring. It's not. He wants to play with his son. He wants to have his coach be his buddy, JJ Redick. He wants to hang out with his pals and enjoy the rest of his basketball life. And honestly, he's done so much with his basketball life. Who can blame the man? Yeah. If you have that kind of stroke, why wouldn't you use it? If you had the ability to say, hey, you're going to draft my kid, even though there's no sure thing that he's ever going to be a great or even good NBA player, you're going to draft him so we can play together. You're going to do it. Wouldn't you?
Yeah. Like, if they didn't draft him, he was going to leave. That's why he waited to sign. Clear as day.
So the James family, like they may not like own the deed. Their names may not be on the title, But certainly, LeBron James is in charge of the Los Angeles Lakers in every meaningful fashion.
Yeah.
And winning is sort of beside the point with the Lakers now. Maybe they can win the in-season tournament and hang another banner for that nonsense. But the thing that is animating LeBron James as he goes into year 22 is a chance to hang out with his buddy JJ Redick and play with his son. And you know what? He's done enough as far as winning basketball games and scoring points and breaking records that he's earned it. If anybody's earned it, it's LeBron James that has earned it. More headlines here on our 580 Sports Talk headlines. We'll go back to the NBA here. We told you earlier this year about the banning for life of former Toronto Raptor Jonte Porter, also former Missouri Tiger, brother of current Denver Nugget Michael Porter Jr., banned from the NBA for life for his connection to a sports betting scandal. Well, he's still in trouble for that. Reportedly, he will be charged with a federal felony connected to that scandal. Federal prosecutors in Brooklyn filed what's known as a criminal information sheet yesterday. The document doesn't specify a court date or the charge or charges, but it does show the case is related to an existing prosecution of 4 men charged with scheming to cash in on tips from a player about his plans to exit 2 games early. An NBA investigation found in April that was Porter, tipping off bettors about his health and then claiming illness to exit at least 1 game, creating wins for anyone who had bet on him to underperform expectations. Porter also gambled on NBA games in which he didn't play, once betting against his own team. The other 4 men charged last month appeared in court. Their names are Amar Awade, Timothy McCormick, Mahmoud Mullah, and Long Fee Pham. And a court complaint against them accused them of using prior knowledge of an NBA player's plans so that they or their relatives could place winning bets on his performance. Federal charges for messing with this stuff. I know every time this comes up that we have an athlete connected to sports gambling, we all panic, right? We all panic. Oh, it's a bad look for the league. It's a bad look for professional sports. I'm telling you, man, this is a new world that we're in where gambling is this accessible and gambling is this pervasive. Certainly, this is all very new. And so there is more temptation and more possibilities for players to get involved. But I am telling you that the punishments for this, the consequences, you lose your career, you have a chance to face federal charges. These are very quickly going to be seen by anybody else who would be Jonte Porter or who would be Tucupita Marcano, the Major League Baseball player who was banned for life earlier this year, to say, nah, man, it's not worth it. No matter how many hoops I think I'm jumping through to get these parlays off, no matter how safe and secure I think I am in my role in this scam, I'm not. And the risk is my career, and it ain't worth it. So the more bad stuff that happens to Jonte Porter or Tucupita Marcano or whoever the next guy is that gets involved in stuff like this, because there will be a next guy, but the more bad stuff that happens, that's what ensures that there are fewer and fewer next guys. And that's good for the integrity of the games as a whole.
Yeah.
Next headline, Spencer.
Yes. We're going to go to our favorite pal who gets a lot of things wrong, but probably got this one right.
Bob Nightingale?
No, Mike Florio.
Oh, our other pal. Okay.
Yeah, so he's been doing the deep dive, the media appearances, everything about the Sunday ticket trial. And a lot is going into this. He just published a story here in the last couple hours to talk about probably going through the papers of the court case and everything. But the price gouging that they did also impacted those that couldn't afford it. Many in the media obviously have known about this. The verdict, it's important. The better question is whether that $14 million will be paid to more than 2.4 million members of the nationwide class action lawsuit. There's still a lot more to go with this, but he breaks it down in an article that basically there should be more people that could be paid from this that couldn't afford it because they were priced out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a big, obviously I feel like this story hasn't taken the light that it should have.
So the conclusion from Florio here, the NFL could still win the case and avoid paying more than $14 billion. Even if it does, the question becomes whether it will keep overpricing Sunday ticket. The fact that so few media outlets are putting it in the terms used above makes it less likely that the NFL will be pressured to come up with a more consumer-friendly approach. The trial's evidence included a document showing ESPN wanted to charge only $70 for the Sunday ticket package, the whole package. What did they charge for it last year on YouTube TV? What did they charge?
$500. So there's like 4 different price plans. One was if you had YouTube TV, one is if you're using YouTube, and then one was if you bought it early and if you didn't buy it early. It was like $549, $449, $349, and $4 something.
I think how much
I'll tell you this, I paid like $160 this year as an early promo from YouTube TV.
Okay. It says here NFL Sunday Ticket on YouTube TV's page, 4 non-cancelable payments of $87.25 a month or $349 a year. $349 a year for all the NFL games. ESPN wanted to charge $70 for it. And it wanted to let customers buy the games a la carte, one team at a time.
Why can't we do that?
The NFL said no. That's why. The NFL knows that enough people will pay the $350 for it, which, yeah, that is bonkers. That is price gouging to me. Like you compare that to what's like MLB TV's $130 a year, and that's 162 games for all your teams, not just 16.
Yeah.
And that's because the other thing too about Sunday Ticket is, yeah, you're buying all the games, but how many of them can you actually watch at once? Right?
Well, also,
and now
you're buying
fewer
the
of them.
out-of-market games. You're not buying as a cord cutter.
Right. You're buying out-of-market games, and there are fewer and fewer games that you're buying because now you have the Thursday night game, and the Sunday night game isn't one you need to buy, and the Monday night game, and the Black Friday game, and now the Christmas games, and all of these games that are widely available on network television. So the inventory you're buying, if you buy Sunday Ticket, is smaller than it used to be. And they're still charging you $350 a year for it. And they know they can get away with it.
Not only that, I just recently bought Sunday Ticket since it's been on YouTube. I had it, I think it was back in 2016 when I started college with the DirecTV student. They had the student discount. And you didn't have to be a DirecTV customer, because I'm pretty sure at one point you used to have to be a DirecTV customer to even get it, unless you were a student.
Yeah. So you had the exclusivity too. Yeah.
Yeah. So I got the student promo that they had for it, which was the only way you could get it outside of being a DirecTV customer. And I went to college in a interesting geographical spot on the NFL geographical map. Steelers and Bengals, really. Is kind of where we are. Well, those teams were on CBS,
right?
So if there wasn't America's Game of the Week, they would randomly show Washington's game on I think I ended up only watching 5 games that year on Sunday Ticket, and I paid $200 for it or whatever the student was.
That's something else that Florio points out, that like the customer base for Sunday Ticket is not necessarily like the Chiefs fan that lives in Topeka. You're going to get to watch all the games anyway of the team that you want to watch. The whole crux of Sunday Ticket, if you don't work in the NFL media and you don't need to watch every single game, you're buying it because you live out of market. That's the consumer base. You're paying money to watch your favorite team. Like if I had ever wanted to do it, to watch all the Seahawks games, living in all of the places I have lived that are not the Pacific Northwest. It never occurred to me to buy it, A, because I never had DirecTV, and then B, when they roll it out for YouTube TV, I don't have $350 to spend to watch just the Seahawks games. My job is to watch the Chiefs games. I'm going to watch those. If I watch any other football, I'm not going to pay $350 for the privilege. So I think it should be a lot lower. The price point should be a lot lower. And if the NFL learns anything from this, maybe it's that. But what is the NFL going to learn? When have they ever learned anything? One final headline. A sad day in the sport of NASCAR. The Hooters car will no longer be driving in NASCAR. Hendrick Motorsports has dropped Hooters as a sponsor because they can't meet their financial commitment to the team. They had been sponsoring Chase Elliott's car since 2017. Elliott won the driver's title in 2020. Hendrick Motorsports thanked Hooters for its contributions since coming on board, but said the chain could not pay its bills. That should tell you more than anything else where we're at in our economy today that Hooters, wings and boobs,
Well, that comes
isn't making enough money anymore.
That comes a week after they're closing their underperforming restaurants.
Yes, they closed more than 40 locations around the country recently. I cannot believe that business plan is even failing to that degree. Like,
well, it's because they had to change it, right?
No. Like, I don't know if they changed the recipe of the wings, but they didn't change the other thing.
That's true.
Like, the other thing is still there. If that's why you go to Hooters, which, let's be honest, that's why most people go to Hooters. I just can't believe that's a failing business model now. Like that, we used to be a country. We used to be a proper country. And now the Hooters business model isn't working. Twin Peaks stole some of their swag. Just amazing that Hooters is in such a bad way that they can no longer pay for their NASCAR sponsorship.
Apparently, if you're in Topeka, you can still go to Hooters.
Yes, the Hooters in Topeka is still very much open. You can still go. That's just down the hill. Take a left.
Yeah.
What is that? 10th and Wanamaker?
Did I tell you I went there the first night I was in town?
The first night.
Yeah. So we stayed at a hotel before I could sign my lease and move in. We stayed at the hotel right there, and we didn't want to go anywhere because we had just driven for the past 3 days.
And you just went right to Hooters.
It was like hotel here, another hotel here, Hooters here, that Phillips 66 on the corner right over there. So we didn't have to leave the parking lot. We walked over to Hooters.
So, like, I've done that before, too. When I was moving to Wichita, this is back in 2013 when I moved to Wichita, I was staying in a hotel that was near a shopping center, and I didn't want to just go to McDonald's. And they had a restaurant that looked like a place to watch a ball game and have a cold beer. And I had just spent the whole day driving a U-Haul, so that sounded pretty good to me. And I walk in, and that was the first time I ever went to a Twin Peaks. And I didn't know anything about it. Completely honest with you. This is an honest-to-God story. I did not know the conceit behind Twin Peaks. And when I walked in, I said, oh, Twin Peaks. Scenic views. Oh, I see what they've done here.
Yeah.
And then I stayed a long time and had a couple beers. And I think I probably watched a ball game that night, but I don't remember that. Anyway, that's my Twin Peaks story. I should have known that's when Hooters were in trouble and other people were jacking their swag. Twin Peaks and other places similarly themed. Anyhow, no more Hooters car in NASCAR. I don't know who will be sponsoring Chase Elliott's car moving forward. I suppose you'll have to tune in to the next race to find out.
The Talladega Nights version.
Yeah, get the me with the Puma on the Cougar.
Somebody did that years ago at a race. I think it was Kurt Busch, maybe.
I think it might have been.
Yeah,
I think I might be right.
Somebody will text us or just put it in the comments.
Yeah, we got some NASCAR fans in the that are frequent YouTube viewers. They'll let us know who's going to sponsor Chase Elliott.
I got a quick
now that Hooters is out of the game. Okay, real quick.
So everything's being finalized, or a lot of TV deals being finalized for sports. I believe Mountain West, the newest one, they're going to be on TNT Sports, 14 games a season this year and next year right now, as they are obviously going through their kind of realignment, getting some teams in, trying to figure out what they're going to do. College football playoff select games through 2028. We know that TNT Sports most likely going to lose the NBA. They're going to get Big East games from 2025 through 2031. NASCAR 5 annual races from 25 to 31, and the French Open through 2034. So they're revamping their lineup of sports while losing the NBA.
That'll do it for the 580 Sports Talk headlines. We'll come back, tell you where the Chiefs stand when it comes to talent under the age of 25 and why it's not bad that they're not in the top 5 or the top 10 like they were last year. That's next on 580 Sports Talk. 5:38 on 580 Sports Talk. I knew Vance would have our back on where we'll see on Chase Elliott's car. It'll be Napa and perhaps the Kelly Blue Book as well. But no Hooters. Hooters out of the NASCAR game. I remember Alan Kulwicki had the Hooters car and won a NASCAR Cup Series like 1992 or something, like really young. Then he perished in a helicopter crash. Was a plane crash.
I'm not sure.
I think it was a plane crash. It was Davey Allison who died in a helicopter crash. There was like a year where a couple of like star NASCAR drivers died in aviation related accidents. Very terribly tragic.
Hasn't there been another big time company that's pulled out of NASCAR?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. Aaron Schatz of ESPN.com put out a list today of the ranking of teams under 25 talent in the NFL. So these are players who are under 25 for this season, this coming season. So as of September 21st, 2024, talent under the age of 25. And they have a whole methodology formula here. And the Houston Texans, perhaps unsurprisingly, rank number one because they have the best young quarterback, the best under 25 quarterback in football in C.J. Stroud. And they also have Will Anderson Jr., who was number 2 pick in last year's draft. Derek Stingley, another standout player, also under the age of 25. Nico Collins is no longer qualified under this ranking, but they have got Tank Dell to kind of take his place and be a standout under 25 player. So this is a good way. These rankings are a good way to see who's drafted well in recent years and who's gotten a lot of production from their draft picks right away. Who has gotten all pro level or starter level production from the guys they've drafted in 2023 and 22 and 21. Because typically, you come into the league 21, 22, right? So players under 25, you're talking about guys going into year 3 generally or less in this list. So the Texans, who knocked the draft out of the park last year and drafted Stingley 2 years ago, they rank number 1 on the list. The Lions rank number 2. Again, a team that has drafted exceptionally well. Aiden Hutchinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Penei Sewell, Sam Laporta, all under the age of 25. They rank 2nd on the list. The Ravens are 3rd. Did you know Kyle Hamilton is still under 25?
I did. He just got drafted a couple of years ago.
It feels like he's been around forever. He's just one of those players that's so good and so integral to his team's success. It feels like he's been in the league 10 years already. He's 23.
The only reason I know this is because my last place I worked with Ravens fans.
Sure.
So they always reminded me how good he was and how young he was.
Maybe followed them a little bit more closely. So the Ravens 3rd, the Falcons 4th, which to me is interesting. Obviously, you got Bijan Robinson, Drake London, Kyle Pitts all qualify there. The Bears 5th, Caleb Williams, Roma Dunze. Like this is assuming that the Bears crushed this draft.
Yeah,
which I think is, optimistic. But I'm a big Caleb Williams guy, so I do. I think the Bears are going to come out really, really good from that draft. The Cardinals 6th, then the Jaguars, Rams, Packers, and Seahawks rounding out the top 10. Again, these are players under the age, core groups of players under the age of 25. The Jets are 11th, the Colts 12th, the Giants 13th, and then we get to the Kansas City Chiefs, who ranked 9th on last year's list. The blue chip players under the age of 25 include Trent McDuffie and George Karlaftis. And Schatz writes, you might expect a 2-time Super Bowl champion to be lower down here, but the Chiefs have done a good job of building a young talent base with later draft picks. They've invested in a lot of draft capital, particularly in their secondary and wide receiver core. So here are the guys that come in for a mention in this blurb that are under 25. Trent McDuffie is 24. Brian Cook is 24. Shamari Connor is 24. Joshua Williams is 24. That is 4/5. Well, let's do 4/6 because I forgot about Justin Reed. 4/6 of your starting secondary. If you go by 3 safeties, right, and three corners, that is 2/3 of your starting secondary is under the age of 25. Nick,
well, and then another guy who's vying to start.
Yeah, Najee Johnson. What's he? 24?
Probably maybe 25 tops.
Well, if he's 25, he doesn't qualify.
Oh yeah, he might be older. Actually, yeah, he might be older. You might be wrong. He took his COVID year.
Yeah, he did take a COVID year. He's 25. He turned 25 last year. In fact, he turns 26 here in a couple of weeks. 2 weeks to be exact. Happy early birthday to Najee Johnson. Nick Bolton is 24. George Karlaftis is 23. So now you're talking about more than half of your defensive starters. If you're in the 6 defensive back set, which the Chiefs play a lot of, more than half of your guys are 24 or younger. On offense, Rashee Rice is 24. Xavier Worthy is 21. And whoever starts at left tackle is going to qualify for this list as well. Wanya Morris is 23. Kingsley Suamataia is 21. So it's not a big deal that the Chiefs don't have a ton of under 25 talent, because where you typically get blue chip talent that young is high in the draft, right? And what are you not doing if you're a Super Bowl champion back-to-back years? Picking very high in the draft. No, you're not. So the fact that the Chiefs have been able to build this level of young talent while picking late in the first round, that tells you that this is an incredible front office. Like we don't say enough just how good Brett Veach and the rest of the scouting staff, how good they are at the draft, how good they are at identifying talent, how good this coaching staff is at developing young talent, because they stand alongside, like the Giants, they pick early in the draft all the time. They're blue chip guys. Kayvon Thibodeau is a top 5 pick. Malik Neighbors was a top 10 pick this year. The Colts are 12th on this list. Anthony Richardson was a number 4, number 5 pick in the draft. Yeah. The Chargers right after have a guy, Joe Alt, who was a top 5 pick. The Jets, their guys were top 5, top 10 picks. They rank 11th, just 3 spots ahead of a team that hasn't picked that high in the draft since Patrick Mahomes was the 10th overall pick, and they had to trade up to get him. So, again, another outstanding testimony to this coaching staff and this front office, that they stand this well regarded when it comes to under 25 talent. More than half of their defensive starters are 24 or younger. And that's why it stands to be, with a nod to frequent YouTube viewer and commenter Tyler, the best defense Mahomes has ever had. And it stands to be that for a long time to come. We'll take a break, come back, talk a little baseball as we get close to wrapping up this edition of 580 Sports Talk. 5:48, we're rounding third, heading for home on this edition of 580 Sports Talk. We will have some overtime for you, taking you to 6:30. We'll hear a conversation we had earlier today with Tim Fitzgerald at GoPowerCat.com. Spencer will have you for OT, and then we'll hand you off to the Royals Baseball Network. 6:30 pregame, 7:10 first pitch, both tonight and tomorrow. Typically, Thursday is a getaway day afternoon game. Not the case tomorrow. It's the 4th of July. Everybody wants to play at night so they can blow stuff up and put on a show at the end of the night for the fans and sell out the game or come close to it. So it's a night game tomorrow as well. 7:10 first pitches each of the next two nights for the Royals and the Rays. Rays took game one last night, 5-1. Tonight, Michael Wacha back on the bump for Kansas City. Been really sharp since coming back from the injured list after he broke his toe on that line drive. 11 and a third innings, only 1 run allowed, 11 strikeouts, and just 10 hits allowed. Only 2 runs allowed, I should say. 1 run allowed in each start. Only thing missing has been length. Last time Wacha worked into or 6 innings or more was the start before he broke his toe back on the 26th. And incidentally, that was against the Rays. He was really good in a losing effort, allowing just 2 runs on 3 hits with 7 strikeouts and 1 walk. Royals would love to see him duplicate that performance and get the bats going against young right-hander Ryan Pepio for Tampa Bay. 83 strikeouts in 72 and a third innings, or 71 and 2/3 innings for Pepio, the changeup specialist, but he has walked 25 and given up 11 home runs. Carries a 4.40 ERA into tonight's start. Really good his last time out, 5 and a third innings, a 1-run ball against the punchless Seattle Mariners. Alec Marsh on the bump tomorrow night for Kansas City, going up against Zach Eflin of the Rays, and Eflin is good as it gets for the Rays with a 3.92 earned run average. Not a strikeout guy, but boy, does he fill up the strike zone. 87 and a third innings this year for Eflin, 7 walks. That is one of the best walk rates in all of baseball for the right-hander. Royals got to salvage the series. They started on the wrong foot last night with that 5-1 loss, and got to get back going. What's more important, depth for Wacha or a little punch from the middle of the order tonight, Spencer?
I think you need to get some runs, score runs, middle of the order.
0 for 12 last night.
Yeah, tough. You can't win games when no one's hitting. Between
Vinny and Salvi and Michael Massey, the 3-4-5 in last night's order, they were combined 0 for. And it's hard to win baseball games when that is the case. Royals will roll much the same lineup as last night. No C.J. Alexander, much to Trenton Craxner's relief. It'll be Michael Garcia at second, Bobby Witt Jr. at short, Vinny Pasquantino at first, Salvador Perez behind the plate, Michael Massey DHing, Hunter Renfroe in right field, MJ Melendez, who had 3 hits last night, in left field batting 7th, Nick Lofton back in the lineup at third base, Kyle Isbell in center. Tampa Bay will roll Yandy Diaz at first base, Brandon Lau, who homered last night off Nick Anderson after you probably went to bed. Certainly after I went to bed. He's at second base batting second. Isaac Paredes, the DH, hits third. Randy Arozarena hitting cleanup in left. Ahmed Rosario, the third baseman. Josh Lowe, the right fielder. Jose Siri in center. Jose Caballero at short. And this is Alex Jackson, the backup catcher. Alex Jackson is 5 for 71 this season at the plate.
Jeez.
Is that bad? Hey, one of those is a home run. Better than I could do.
That home run was off Corbin Burns, of all people, too.
For real?
Baseball.
Don't you love baseball? Isn't it just the best? So that's how the lineups shake out tonight. Royals looking for a bounce back where they are 30-17 this year at Kauffman Stadium. Then tomorrow they will either be hoping to salvage just one game in the series and avoid being swept for just a second time this year, or they will be going for a series win in the rubber game. Both games, 7:10 first pitches here on 580 WIBW. We'll take one final break here today. Come back, wrap things up with the final word. Wrapping up this edition of 580 Sports Talk with the final word. Spencer, lead us off.
The Royals went through a rain delay. Bobby Witt Jr. said, let me smash a home run, but the bullpen gave it up. That bullpen is very inconsistent this year. They need to find a level. Can we just level off, please? You think you have a level, and then like 3 guys give up runs, and you're like, what in the world? They got another shot at the Rays tonight. Get going here at 7:10 p.m. Hopefully they can get one for Waka tonight, and then it'll be a good 4th of July for them tomorrow. Hope everyone has a great 4th of July.
One baseball note for me to start my final word. The All-Star Game starters are about to be announced on ESPN. We'll see if either Salvador Perez or Bobby Witt Jr. won the fan vote in Phase 2. If they didn't, I fully expect that both of them will be named to the Midsummer Classic, regardless where they will be wearing, as you pointed out to us earlier, Spencer, some really weird uniforms. They're like a dishwater gray, with red sleeves.
Yeah,
it's not a great look. The rest of my final word is this. I hope everybody enjoys their 4th of July tomorrow. We will be off. So I hope everybody enjoys their 4th of July, enjoys the freedoms that are afforded us by living in the United States, and celebrates the thing that made those freedoms possible and that made our great democracy possible. Enjoy the time with family and friends if you're blessed enough to get to spend it with them. But also, again, I ask you, with regard to the fireworks, be safe. Number one, most important thing. I want everybody back here on Friday with all their appendages, all right? Not just you and Trenton either, Spencer. I'm talking about our listeners, too. I want 10 fingers and 10 toes and 2 hands and 2 legs and 2 arms. All right, we got to make that happen. So let's be safe with the fireworks, but also let's be considerate. Be considerate of your neighbors. Be considerate of pets, animals in the area. Be considerate of small children, infants that might be living in your neighborhood. Please try to be considerate of your neighbors when it comes to setting off the fireworks. Have a great time. Shoot them off all night, but shut it down at an appropriate time, maybe, is what I would recommend and hope that you would do, to be considerate, because, being in a society and being considerate of our neighbors, being good teammates, that's what makes America great, too. That's going to do it for 580 Sports Talk. We'll have some overtime coming up before Royals baseball. We are off tomorrow. We will be back on Friday to wrap up the week here on 580 Sports Talk, live from the Kansas Drive to Zero studio. For Trenton Kraxner and for Spencer Dupuis, I'm Dan Lucero. Have a great rest of your day, everyone, and a happy 4th of July from 580 Sports Talk.